Thank you. This Medicine Hat City Council meeting is called to order at 6:30 p.m. on April 7th, 2025. We will begin with a moment for prayer or reflection. Thank you. The City of Medicine Hat acknowledges that we live and work on treaty territory. The city pays respect to all Indigenous peoples and honors their past, present, and future. We recognize and respect their cultural heritages and relationships to the land. So we'll start with the adoption of previous council meeting minutes. There are a couple of corrections. Oh, that's public services. Any errors or omissions? Seeing none, we will adopt the regular council meeting minutes of March 17th, 2025 as presented for the corporate record. Adoption of the agenda. Any errors or omissions, additions that anyone would like to add? Okay, seeing none, the agenda is adopted as presented for the council announcements. Councillor Sharps.
Thank you, Mayor Clark. Just a really quick announcement. Over the weekend, I was out and about just meeting with some people, and a resident came up to me when I was meeting with some people and said, Shyla, what do you think? Do you think you guys could change the TP lights to the Tigers jersey colors? And I said, you know what, I have no idea. I think that's a great idea. So I emailed Managing Director Hutter, who got on it with his team today, and I'm happy to tell you that they've managed to, there's a lot of bookings on the lights already, but we are going to be lighting up the teepee on April 12th and 13th so far, and then we will take it as the playoffs come. So shout out to Manager Director Hutter for getting that done so quickly. We appreciate it. Thank you.
And City Manager Mitchell has asked for an opportunity to introduce our new Managing Director of Corporate Services and CFO.
Thank you, and through the chair, I just want to publicly welcome Jillian. This is her second week. Jillian comes to us from Strathcona County, previously City of Edmonton, with a great deal of experience in finance, strategy, and corporate knowledge. We're grateful you're here, and welcome aboard. Thank you.
Welcome. Moving on to our consent agenda. Is there anyone who would like to pull one or more items from the consent agenda for discussion? Okay, so we do have one correction with respect to the March 24th Public Services Committee minutes.
Thank you, Your Worship. In the minutes from the Monday, March 24th Public Service Committee meeting, it reads Councillor R. Hyder and Chair Councillor C. Robbins. That should be vice versa, and so that will be corrected.
Thank you very much. Can I get a motion with respect to the consent agenda?
I move that council adopts the consent agenda items as presented.
I'll second that. Okay, we will vote. And that's unanimously approved. Moving on now to unfinished business. Item 9.1, senior leadership expenses. This was postponed from the March 17th regular council meeting, and it was put forward by Councillor McGrogan as a notice of motion at that time. I will ask that Councillor McGrogan go ahead and make his motion.
Yeah, thank you, and through the chair. I'll read the motion, and then I have just a couple paragraphs to kind of explain it a little bit before I guess the seconder and then potential. Yes, thank you. So be it resolved, City Council directs administration to adjust policy to publish twice per year in the spring and fall, all senior administrative expenses, including line items, details, including without limitation, business travel, meals, hosting, and employee recognition for the senior administration. Senior management includes city manager, managing director, and directors. Council directs administration to complete this by Q2 of 2025.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder?
I will second that.
Thank you, Councillor Sharps. Would you like to speak to your motion?
Yes, thank you. I'll just give a couple, it might save some questions as we go. So I'll just read my comments. It's recently the mayor and some members of the public have attempted to obtain actual expenses of senior administration officials to varying degrees. In the public case, it was necessary to engage FOIP legislation to obtain the information at the expense of the resident. This council has preached accountability and transparency from the onset of this term, and this action creates yet another level that the public would expect from those expending public funds. It is a responsible step that I believe would only add confidence and trust with our council, the ones that we serve. Council's expenses are published as they should be, and I believe that it is a responsible step to include senior administration in the same reporting process. A search of other Alberta municipalities determined that several larger municipalities publicly report expenses for top administrations. Example is city managers, chief executive officers, and in some cases, department heads, including and how they're reported. So I'll list the cities. So it's the city of Calgary, where basically I formed my notice of motion from, city of Edmonton, city of Lethbridge, and the city of St. Albert. So there are my comments. I do have some information in relation to each of those communities and how they report, and I will be emailing that to all of council. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Just a reminder to everyone in chambers, try and keep the whispering and stuff to a minimum. Even though you are whispering, I don't know if it's our space lower, it does travel quite and echoes a little bit, so it can be hard to hear if there's someone else talking. Are there any, is there any other councillors that would like to speak to this motion? Councillor Robbins.
Yes, thank you, and through the chair. As I think I've said enough times at this table, I do work for another level of government. I am on the salary disclosure list and have had my expenses that I incur in the course of my work published. I tried to look back, but at least 2013. So I'm not sure how that happens, how electronically what I file gets into some sort of disclosure. But as a result, I've never had to prepare a FOIP response on any of my expenses or income because it's publicly available. And so I think that there's I'm not sure it's so much about transparency. We do have policy in place, but I think there are certainly people who want to know how their taxpayer dollars are spent. I've personally, just speaking to people who might be affected by the decision, I am going to support this. I've always felt like I was following the policy and doing things correctly, and so if the taxpayers who paid those expenses wanted to know, how much I spent for lunch, then they could have that information. I had no reason not to provide it to them. I think that if we say we're not going to, well, sorry, I'll say two things. First, I am a little bit worried about the electronic process of making that happen. Like where they sit, how they get published. But if it's twice a year, then I think we've got some time for administration to tell us what that's going to look like, if everyone agrees, that is, or the majority agrees. I've forgotten my other point, but to me, like I'm a little bit worried about that, but I think that there's a better reason to say we have policies, the people who work here are following the policies, and let's just show our cards on this one.
Councillor Sharps.
Thank you, Mayor Clark, and through the chair. So I too am going to support this, and primarily because, again, I looked at other regions and most seem to be doing it. And I think it goes back to a date when, and I feel my motions are centered around the same thing, so I'll give you my preamble right now, but I'll probably repeat it. But there was a time where Mayor Clark had made a motion when you were sitting on the edge of not to bring that up, but to bring it up, sorry. When you were on the edge of the horseshoe there and you made some motions, and I had specifically asked if this would be something that would ever be FOIPable. And I believe at the time, we all thought it would not be FOIPable. So I wasn't going to support it because I fell under private information. But it is FOIPable, and it is absolutely being out there in the public. So if it's FOIPable, let's just do the right thing and get it out into the public. It is taxpayer dollars. I know there's criticism of even my expenses because I go to all the events, and I get that. But I go to all the events because I have an opportunity to learn and talk to ministers and talk to other counties and try to get best practice and just do better every time. So I think sometimes I'd rather that out there and people look at the amount and they go, wow, that seems like a lot of money, but that's exactly how much it costs to go. I don't go on big fancy dinners. I don't do any of that. I literally don't expense anything. However, our staff aren't in the same position. They have to take people. They are taking different levels of government out. Things like that happen. So let's just get it on the table where it's out in the open. There's no drama. And I would have that, in my mind, it's better to be open and honest about it than try to make our citizens FOIP the information. It's, at the end of the day, it's all our taxpayer dollars. Let's just get it out. So I am going to support this.
Thank you. Councillor Van Dyke.
Yes, thank you through the chair. So I think there's no issue with sharing this kind of information if it's standard practice in other municipalities. My one question or assumption is that this would also include fire and police services. Is that the intention of this? Because they are also senior administration funded by the public in the public interest and funded by the city. So my question is if this applies evenly across the board to our senior administration within the corporation of the City of Medicine Hat, including fire and police.
So I will let Councillor McGrogan reply to that. I would suggest, though, that because the police chief doesn't report through the city manager or to council, it might be a little bit out of our scope. Councillor McGrogan.
Thank you, and I'll just, from experience, the Police Act covers that the governing body of the police service is the commission, but I think the fire department falls under our city admin. So I would suggest that, you know, again, I'm not admin, and I think maybe city manager might be able to answer this better, but I don't think the police fall under it, but I think fire do.
Does that answer your question, Councillor Van Dyke?
Yeah, I would like probably confirmation. I will support it, but I would like to see if we're applying this policy to senior administration, that it be applied evenly across the board if we're doing it in the name of transparency and public interest.
But not,
As long as it's not covered and protected under other legislation.
okay, I'll go to the city manager, but you could put forward a motion to amend if you wish. City Manager Mitchell?
Thank you. Through the chair to Councillor McGrogan, you are correct. It's the Police Commission, Public Service Board, Police Act, so there is no reporting mechanism through that, and that would fall under the Police Commission. So one question I do have is, if this is approved, you've got a very loose definition of senior management. Does that mean executives, city manager, MDs, or all directors? Just for clarity, thank you.
So in the resolution, it does say in the last sentence, senior management includes the city manager, managing directors, and directors. So I guess it wouldn't include actually the police chief. Okay, so I guess that answers your question. You bet.
Sorry, thank you. So what about fire services, which does fall under the corporation of the City of Medicine Hat? I don't know what their titles are, how they are different from these, so. Or directors? Okay, thank you.
Can you repeat that into the mic so that it gets on the recording?
He's considered a director level.
The police chief, or sorry, the fire chief? Okay. Counselor Dumanowski.
Yep, through the chair, just briefly weighing in, maybe in reverse order, I certainly am a member of the Police Commission. One of Councillor Hirsch and I are on the Police Commission currently with, I believe it's 7 community members. So there's a full complement. And, you know, as far as raising the question of, or the validity of having the police chief do report in the same way, the Police Act very carefully and very prescriptively is ensures that there's no public body or governing body interference. So my worry about bringing it even up, and nothing against Councillor Van Dyke for bringing it up, is that we're creeping into the I guess the edges of the Police Act when we ask that question, because and I know that's not your intention, but it is essentially now going to create a public adjudication of whether, in this case, Chief Murphy, acquiesces and decides to do the same. But it's very clear and very intentional so that we avoid that. There is a police commission, commissioners who adjudicate, review, challenge or suggest things vis-a-vis their roles. And so I just wanted to make that a very high-level caution in advance. As far as the motion, I wasn't here when this motion was made, and I'm glad that Councillor McGrogan was able to kind of give some background information to support it. And I'm certainly not opposed to it. And this isn't whether a response from individual councils, whether we have strong affinity to our city manager or not. This is about reasonableness and at the same time balancing transparency in an environment that is ever more so requesting it. My only thing, and I think Councillor Sharps actually said it really well, is let's get it out there. We have senior bureaucracy or management, managing directors, city manager, and others who have a responsibility. I as the city manager is our employee, but certainly as one of the people whom the city manager responds to, I would expect she and the managing directors and others expend the appropriate, follow the guidelines, follow the policies, and in my almost 24 years around this table, I've yet to see an example where that hasn't been followed. That's the truth. But number two, that they are not feeling inhibited in a way to do more of the same, and that is to meet and greet and expend where necessary. There will always be public scrutiny around that. We, as Councillor Sharp said, we enjoy, I'll use the word, the same scrutiny, and as public officials, we certainly put ourselves in that position. I just want to caution everyone to use level-headedness and reasonableness when looking at these things. And I think initially there will be greater interest, like anything else, and then not that over time it'll die off. But I certainly just don't want to see this become an impediment to them doing their jobs. And yes, at times it does mean lunch meetings. I've had people ask me about that. Can't they do their meetings outside of lunch? Sometimes food is the measure of landing a deal or moving an initiative forward that might be worth millions, if not hundreds of millions. And so it has its place. Going to conferences, meeting with other people of the same level of management in other parts of the province or the country. I fully support that. I fully expect it. Thank you.
Councillor Van Dyke.
Yes, thank you through the chair. Just a brief follow-up. My intention was not to call into question police services or their work, and I understand it is a separate, it's governed by a separate body. My question was purely around the idea of if we are supporting with public funds, is it in the public interest to have the same level of reporting from them? But I do understand it is a different beast. So not trying to call into question anything with Medicine Hat Police Services, which is an excellently run organization after sitting on the commission for 2 years. I'm very impressed by them. Thank you.
Councillor Knodel.
Thank you, Mayor Clark. So on principle, I definitely support transparency in regards to leadership's income and expenses. I think that my trepidation or hesitation is similar to Councillor Dumanowski's in that there's a relationship building element of the work that is done at the administrative level, and ultimately just having that understanding in mind when that information becomes public is important to me, and ultimately I hope that people have a level head when reviewing that information.
Just double checking, Councillor Van Dyke, you don't have a motion to amend? No, okay. I am glad that this is coming forward. I appreciate the fact that we have gotten to this place, and I would still very much like to have the backward looking within our term expenses as well, but I am very grateful that Councilor McGrogan has put this forward, and I intend to support it. With that, seeing no further speakers, we will vote. And that's unanimous. We have a second notice of motion. This was also put forward by Councillor McGrogan, postponed from the March 17th regular council meeting, and it is with respect to request for status report overnight shelter. Councillor McGrogan.
Thank you. The first thing I'd like to do is amend the notice of motion. The date on here before it was postponed was April the 7th. I'd like to move that to April the 22nd if I could. And I will read the motion and then give just a very brief explanation.
We'll get a seconder and then I'll come back to you. Okay.
Yes, thank you.
I'll second. Did he read it yet?
The motion first.
Sorry.
Sorry.
No, don't be.
Be it resolved, the City Council directs administration to provide council with a zoning status report of 737 8th Street Southeast, including the dates of the building was zoned for its present purpose and existing conditions related to its operation. This information is requested for the open portion of the April 22nd, 2025 council meeting.
I will second that.
Go ahead, Councilor
Thank you.
McGrogan.
Through the chair, just a couple brief comments. Being involved in the Municipal Planning Commission information in relation to the mustard seed location on allowance, it became very clear that we have a very, I would call them, agitated group that are concerned about the shelter off of 737 8th Street Southeast. Now, several of the residents have told me that they've tried to inquire about the information about what it is zoned as and, you know, what conditions exist at that location. I will be quite honest, I thought there would be more disturbance down there than has, I think, been reported, but I think it would be a good public reporting to say what is it zoned, what are the conditions, and that would help us all moving forward with that location until we find a new one. Thank you.
Councillor Sharps.
Thank you. I also want to just acknowledge the reason for the date change is only because you did not do this motion last week, correct? Just for the people sitting in the gallery. So there's no way, you're welcome. There's no way it can be today because it's only today. Yeah, okay. I will say that sitting on MPC that day, I'm glad that Councillor McGrogan brought this forward. We heard you loud and clear, I think, and loud and clear, just in case you didn't know. You made some great points and your questions weren't answered, so let's get them answered. And I think that's all you're asking for, and I think they were fair, they were valid. And the city as a whole, we just need to be more responsive to you, and so I hope you hear that this council has heard you, and we're trying to get that done. We also acknowledge that we can't just snap our fingers in administration to answer us, so they need to be with proper notices of motion and motion so that everybody's clear on what we're asking going forward. So just wanted to make sure that you were aware of that, because I could see you like steaming up there already. So I will also say that I do know that there has been some incidents there, so maybe not all recordable, maybe, I think we all have a different definition of an incident. So I know the neighborhood's still not happy, and justly so, based on some of the video I've seen. So I hope that the mustard seed can move forward. We can take care of our vulnerable as well as we can take care of our neighborhood. So just wanted to make sure that the gallery heard that.
All right, seeing no further speakers, we're going to vote on the motion put forward by Councillor McGrogan and seconded by Councillor Sharps. There you go. And that's unanimous. Next up is new business, 10.1, Kiwanis Club Trail naming request. And I am going to ask our councillor who sits on the Municipal Names Committee to provide a brief introduction.
Thank you, Mayor Clark, and through the chair. I'm really actually quite excited and happy to have a little bit of a good news story here for Medicine Hat. I just wanted to start by talking about the Kiwanis Club. The Kiwanis Club of Medicine Hat, along with Golden K Kiwanis and the Gas City Kiwanis Club, work together to proudly serve the citizens of Medicine Hat. The Kiwanis organization has been in existence for over 100 years. The three groups that I've previously mentioned are wonderful volunteers who dedicate endless hours to our community. Philanthropy is at the heart of the work that the Kiwanis Club of Medicine Hat achieves. As well, the club engages all adults and youth volunteers to improve the quality of life for the citizens of Medicine Hat. Kiwanis works to develop future generations of leaders through their service leadership programs, providing leadership development opportunities for students at every single stage in their life, from elementary schools to university. These programs promote personal growth and community building for a broad spectrum of students, allowing them to form enduring relationships while building better communities for many generations to come. And with that, sorry, folks, a lot of paperwork tonight. I move that council approves renaming of the, I'm going to hopefully get this right, Devonian Trail.
Devonian.
Thank you, Mayor Clark, Devonian Trail to Kiwanis Centennial Trail.
I will second that motion.
Thank you.
Councillor Van Dyke.
Yes, thank you through the chair. I just had a question for administration, sort of related to this, but not very specifically, is do we have a way of making sure we're not accidentally renaming something that we have previously named in honor of something else? So this Devonian Trail, I'm not sure how it was originally named, but do we have a tracking mechanism to make sure we're not doubling up on naming things that we've committed to other groups?
Okay, Councillor Knodl's mic is on. City Manager Mitchell or City Clerk?
There we go. Thank you, Your Worship. So through the Municipal Names Committee, there's extensive background and research on when there's requests made, if there's already a name on it. So for the past 6 months to a year, the due diligence has been done to ensure that that's appropriate to change it over. Yeah. This process has been going on for some time.
Councillor McGrogan.
Thank you, and through the chair, for my benefit and probably anyone else that may be interested, what is Devonian Trail? What is the origin of that name, and who are we offending by taking the name away? I guess is what I'm curious. So I think it'd be good information for everyone.
City Clerk?
So it's through the research that mainly Mr. Hutter and his group did. The Devonian group is, I can't say that word full, that one. They did tons of work in Western Canada in the 80s and 90s, and they brought a lot of green spaces, parks, trails, that sort of thing to a lot of cities in Canada, and they did a lot of the funding. So that is what it was named after. They're not active anymore, but so we cannot forget them. They did brought a lot of funding, a lot of projects and recreation, those type of outdoor recreations to Western Canadians.
And there was no agreement that we would keep the name or anything like that?
None to be found.
None to be found. Okay. And the word was philanthropic. So Devonian group was a philanthropic group, for those playing along at home. Okay, so seeing no further speakers, Councillor Knodel, Councillor Robbins.
Yeah, I just thought it might be helpful for people to know where the Devonian Trail is. If nobody knows, I have Googled it, and I could tell you.
So it's in the package.
Yeah, I just thought while we're talking about naming the trail, we should maybe say where it is.
Right along River
And
Road
it's-
into Strathcona.
It's basically right behind us going down to Strathcona. I just wanted to confirm that that was the
Okay.
same thing we're all talking about.
Thank you. Seeing no further questions, we will vote on, did we get a seconder? Okay, Councillor Hyder's motion for the trail renaming. And that's unanimous. So congratulations to Kiwanis Club and their centennial. Councillor Hyder?
Just before we wrap that up, on that note, the City of Medicine Hat is extremely grateful for all the years of work that the Kiwanis has dedicated to our community. And as the council representative on the Municipal Names Committee, council is extremely excited to announce the renaming of Devonian Trail to Kiwanis Centennial Trail. I just would like to say thank you again to the members of Kiwanis who, there's a lot of work that lots of organizations, but Kiwanis does a lot of work in our community, and I'm happy for them and hope that this is a wonderful merger.
All right. Item 10.2, purchase order revision, construction and commissioning manager services water treatment plan residuals management project. Basically, it's an ask for additional funds for the water treatment plant residuals management facility. And it is being sponsored by Development and Infrastructure, who will speak to this item. Managing Director Bohan. Let's get the motion on the table first.
Did this come up at the last committee meeting? No, it didn't, because if it did, I wasn't here, so I wasn't going to do the motion, but if it didn't, I'm good.
It wasn't on the
Okay.
DNI.
Okay, so I move that council approve a purchase order revision of $34,000 for a total revised purchase order amount of $814,992,000.64 for the construction and commissioning manager services of the WTP Residuals Management Project.
I'll second for the sake of debate.
Thank you, and it really should have come through Development and Infrastructure Committee, so that's something to consider for the future. Managing Director Bohan?
Thank you, Mayor Clark. The reason I didn't go to D&I committee or Development Infrastructure Committee was just strictly due to timing of this project and getting to the end of the quarter. And we couldn't go from administrative committee to Development Infrastructure and still make the city council meeting. And we are running into time constraints with this project. The motion before you is to approve a purchase order revision of $34,000 for the total revised purchase order amount of $814,992.64. This is for the construction and commissioning manager services of the water treatment plant residuals management project. This request is not for a budget amendment, as the project remains within the council-approved budget. The need for this approval came about as a result of the purchase order amount exceeding the sole source maximum administration approval limit. As this project continues to track for final commissioning phase, it's on budget and on schedule.
So retroactively, the bid, like if we had known that this was the amount initially, it should have gone through RFP? Is that the gist of it?
Yeah, if I can just maybe
Yeah,
qualify
sure.
that. So what we did is, what the original project executive did is they hired a external contractor that was, had unique skills and qualities that, to make this project less risky and more fail-safe. So when we first put this project out to tender, we basically sole sourced this to an individual contractor. As we neared the end of this project, that was 4 years ago, as we near the end of this project, it's gone over the approved council amount, and that's why we're looking for this additional $32,000. It's not, it's within budget, but it's over administration's approval limit.
Okay, so 34,000. Councillor Knodel.
Thank you, Mayor Clark. Through the chair to Managing Director Bohan, I'm just curious if you can create a tangible amount for that sole source maximum administrative approval limit. What is it? Is 34,000 the difference? So what is that, okay, so if I'm doing my math correctly, it would be that 814 minus 34,000, and that's the sole source approval limit? Is that right?
Go ahead, Managing Director Bohan.
Thanks, Mayor Clark. On January 31st, 2025, the acting Managing Director Barta provided council with an accounting of the sole source purchase order, and the next steps being close follow-up to ensure compliance with policy 0170. So this is a non-standard purchase, and essentially after that email, we had then exceeded that amount by 34,000. So it was 814, I think in the briefing note, it's $814,992 less the 34,000.
Perfect.
Okay.
Exactly as I assumed. Thank you.
Sorry, I'm trying to do the math in my head.
All good. Yep.
Councillor Sharps.
Thank you, Mayor Clark, and through the chair. So just also a quick, I want to make sure I understand. I understand the 34. This was the same one that there was already one budget amendment on, correct? Managing Director? 2, correct? Okay.
Managing Director Bohan.
Thanks, Mayor Clark. This actually is not a budget amendment.
No,
This
sorry,
is an
let me
approval.
clarify. This is for an item that already has had a budget amendment.
It has had an approval limit exception, correct?
I'm not referring to the 34, I'm referring to the briefing note in general. So, no, that's all right, I'm maybe not being clear. So this particular project already had one budget amendment, correct? Like it was 305 and then we did a budget amendment?
We've done, council's approved 2 budget amendments.
Okay, that's what I just wanted to clarify. So there will be no budget amendment on this. This is nothing but an approvals. Okay, so the only thing, and I'm just wanting to touch on the whole committee thing, just so we can, if city manager could take this back, or if we could just talk about it. Because I do think that it's really imperative that this stuff comes through the committees. The committees are there for a reason, unless we dissolve the committees, and which I'm also happy to dissolve the committees. But as the chair of development and infrastructure, I was a little shocked to see this on the weekend. I was like, what? What is this? So I like to, as the reader of the motion, I would like to be informed of what's happening. So just so I can speak to it properly too. So thank you.
Thank you very much. I see City Manager Mitchell. Are you responding specifically to Councillor Sharps's? Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. Through the chair, and just for council's awareness, this project has been back a few times, and we've also had the third party that looked at it. This is one of the things that we brought this back for, is because we wanted to make sure that we weren't out scope of policy, but there will be some more information coming forward on the committees. And I know that the clerk and her staff are working on that, looking at them in reference to the October large report. Thank you.
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you. I do know that there's lots of work being done on the committees. I just, until that work's done and approved by council, I just would like to make sure that we still stick to, as you can imagine, my shock reading this on Friday. Yeah, thank you.
City Manager Mitchell, if you could just remember to turn on your mic when you're speaking, because if you don't, then it's not recorded for the record.
Through the chair to Councillor Sharps, the only reason this skipped over the committee was because of time constraints, which I think Managing Director Bohan alluded to.
Okay, so I guess the part maybe I was confused about, and you've explained it well, is that it's a revised purchase order amount. So it's within budget, but the purchase order is being revised. Okay, and what are, if any, are the legal risks associated with kind of revising the purchase order at this point when it may have needed to go through a different process earlier?
Thank you, Mayor Clark. Actually, there's no adverse or legal exposure to my knowledge by doing this. This is it normally would have been approved by administration. However, it exceeds our sole source limits. So I don't anticipate, and we haven't identified any external risk by going down this process.
Trade agreements, anything like that?
Not to my knowledge, no.
Councillor Robbins.
Yes, thank you. And through the chair, I just wanted to say it's not a budget amendment. I'm very clear about that. You said it multiple times, which is great. And we have had moments like this before where we were asked for forgiveness as opposed to permission. So I appreciate this is an abbreviated timeline. Ideally, it would have gone through DNI, but I'd always rather give permission than forgiveness if I can. So I'll be supporting it.
We don't really have just to be clear, if we don't support this, we're out of line with regulation, we're not going to finish the project, et cetera. Those would be the risks. Elaborate on that.
Yeah, sure. And we are nearing completion of this project, as we had alluded to back earlier in this year. And yes, ultimately delays at this point would put the project in jeopardy in terms of its completion dates. Whether or not it would have a material impact on legally is a question I haven't really delved into. I can tell you we will incur additional costs on the project if we delay.
All right, seeing no further speakers, we will vote on the motion. That's unanimous. And judging from the t-shirts in the crowd, I imagine that this is the item that lots of people have been waiting for. Samus Solar Detailed Due Diligence Funding Request. So this is with respect to not pursuing any solar project at this moment, but just a extension of time so that we can do due diligence with the possibility of future projects. I see that Mr. Tuchscherer is with us. Are you planning on doing is there a presentation associated? City Manager Mitchell?
Thank you. Through the chair, and as chair of this committee, it would normally be up to Councillor Hirsch, but unfortunately he's away today. So I'd like to turn it over to Councillor Van Dyke to give a brief introduction before Mr. Tuchscherer starts. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, so Mayor Clark did cover it quite well there. This coming forward today to council is a funding request to do additional due diligence. This project started over a year ago, I believe. I can't even remember the timeline. It's been quite a while. Things have changed over that time. Obviously, we know the economy has changed, regulations have changed, and so the request for funding for this project is to do proper due diligence for a business plan to understand kind of what the best path forward is for council. So this is to fund the information that we need to make a decision as to what we want to do in the future. So I just want to make very clear to the public, anyone watching this, that this is not a decision to move ahead with development. This is a decision to fund research to know if we should move ahead. With that, I will turn it over to either Managing Director Pancoast or Director Tuchscher.
Let's start with Managing Director Pancoast, and then you can
Thank you,
send it
through the
over.
chair. I know Director Tuchscher's comments will address it, so I'll turn it over to him. Thank you.
Okay. Do we want to get a motion on the table first?
Apologies for that. I move that, I've got to find the right place here, sorry. I move that council approve a funding request of $675,000 to engage third parties in the detailed due diligence phase for the Sama Solar Development Project. The detailed due diligence is an important phase of the project development work that is necessary to inform a decision to proceed or not proceed with construction of the Sama Solar Project.
Do we have a seconder?
I'll second that.
All right, Councillor Hyder has seconded it. Mr. Tuchscher?
All right, good evening. Tonight we are bringing forward a budget ask for $675,000 to complete the next phase of the Sama Solar Project. Like private industry, the city takes a stage gate approach to large capital projects. The city completed preliminary due diligence prior to acquiring the project, and now that the city is the owner of the project, the next step would be to complete further detailed due diligence to provide a detailed site layout with a refined capital cost estimate and updated project economics. For example, this step of engineering would improve on the preliminary estimate and provide a tighter plus or minus 10% capital cost estimate. This more detailed information is required to continue to evaluate the project to determine the future of the project and a potential build decision. While we recognize there are risks and uncertainties with large generation builds such as this, it is important to note these are long life assets and that require a long-term view. It is also important to note there has been interest from existing and potential customers to receive green energy in the city. Due to our city exemption under the Electric Utilities Act, we are the sole provider of electricity in our service territory, and the ability to provide this to our customer base should also be considered. I would like to reiterate the city is not making a final investment decision on this project tonight, but is requesting this budget to be able to get all the detailed information to be able to make a final investment decision once this step is completed. This subsequent decision to move forward to the construction phase or not will be made based on economic feasibility of the project, the related value to our rate base, and to our community.
All right. So I will go to Councillor Knotel.
Thank you, Mayor Clark. Through the chair to Manager Tuchscher. I'm just curious about the size and scope, without going into too much detail about the customers themselves. What size of customers are looking for green energy?
We have been contacted by some of our larger industrial and commercial customers in the city that would have a fairly significant size of consumption for this project.
Councillor Hyder.
Through the chair, thank you, Travis, for your work on this. Just probably to compare, because there's probably lots of conversation within our community, the difference between the solar project we had out by Gas City Campground and this project. Travis.
Sure. Yeah, definitely two different technologies. This is more the commercial viable or the commercial scale you see out there, which is PV solar. The technology we had at the campground was a solar thermal that heated a liquid that created steam that went down to our steam turbines at the power plant. So definitely a different way. That one more directly made steam, and this one creates power from a direct current to an AC.
Thank you.
Can you comment on functionality in our climate?
Yeah, for sure. And these are definitely in the market right now in Alberta, and there is proven technologies that we can get, a good idea of what the costs and what the output of these projects are in different areas of the province, and specifically our area of the province.
Thank you. Councillor McGrogan?
Thank you, and through the chair. First, I want to thank Rochelle and your group for the work that's been done on this. This has been kind of a long, kind of ongoing look. First, it was the land acquisition, and then there was some lease things, and it's kind of a progressive step. But I almost feel like we're on a collision course right now with, potential of an MCC, an election coming up, and I almost look at this like the frog in the boiling water. It's like, at what point do we say, where do we go with this? So the question I have is, if we delay this for, let's say, a quarter, and we were to maybe ramp up the MCC conversation, how would that negatively affect whatever direction we go? Is that a fair question?
Yeah,
Go ahead.
Yeah, this project has contractual milestones that are coming sooner rather than later, that it's important that we are able to get this information and make a decision. If we don't get that, the decision may be made for us in terms of we may run out of time or may have run up against a wall that will put the project in a tougher spot than it is today.
Can we estimate an approximate drop dead date on this? No pun intended, but, where, if we don't make the decision and we say, let's put this off and see where we're going with MCC, where is that crucial date? Where would it be approximately that we, because we don't want to lose investment money we've already spent, obviously. We don't want to lose good opportunity, but what is that magical date, or is there one?
I'd like to think that we're pretty close to on that critical path. This work alone would take about 4 months to do. We'd still have to RFP maybe a few pieces of this due diligence. So therefore, to be able to do that RFP, 4 months to do the work, be able to put a package together for a council decision, it does take some time, and we don't, like I said, we do have contractual deadlines that are coming out sooner rather than later.
Thank you. And I'm going to reserve I support this or I don't until I hear from the other council members. Thank you for your information.
Just on Councillor McGrogan's question about the timeline, if it's confidential, it's confidential, but presumably we're doing this now urgently because we have a certain amount of time left in the current contract that, because this would be a bit of an addition to what we've already decided. So is it fair to say that, like you said, it's soon? Is there anything more specific? Because I'm just a little worried if, we do think about delaying, that could put us at risk of just flushing the whole thing down the toilet that we've already spent.
Yeah, I don't think I'm able to release any information on the contractual timelines or
Thank
deadlines.
you. Councillor Dumanowski.
Excuse me, through the chair. So I have comments. Are we at questions currently, or comments and current?
Motion's on the table, so the world is your oyster.
Okay, the world's mine. Thank you. I appreciate it. I don't have any specific questions. I know council has had a number of opportunities to, in close, for obvious reasons, have lots of updates on this project along the way. And I appreciate, there are two sides to the story, if you will. I'm not going to reference people in the chamber, but I do know there are people in this community, many of whom see incredible value, foresee the opportunity that this city is on, and almost really for the uniqueness of this project, really, from the standpoint of timelines and changing landscapes, politically and otherwise, we are on the precipice of either making the decision to move forward in some fashion or not. And I know there are opposing feelings out there, and I don't think anyone around this table does anything but recognize that. So please know that. As far as what's before us, not insignificant dollars. I know $675,000 if you are in opposition is $675,000 and change more in opposition to our project. However, from the standpoint of, as it was indicated very succinctly, we are finding ourselves already having made significant investment in interest in this project from DP. We are the holders of it. That is not going to change. That is fact. What we do with it is also you're going to challenge us unless we don't meet certain timelines. And the timelines, I appreciate, without more detail, come across a little bit, not strangely or with suspicion, but it almost feels, if I were general public and I were hearing that the necessity to move this forward tonight or timelines won't be hit, it may add to my curiosity around the project. But I want to assure, I guess that's what I'm trying to say, is I want to assure the public this is a well-known step in the process that council, as your elected body, is moving toward. We have the necessity to identify and understand site layout in a very specific way. We have the necessity to understand capital cost estimates much more surgically, if you will, at this stage. And finally, we also need to know the changing economics. I will say, generally speaking, when we entered into this process, we understood the economics to be highly viable. That is in the eye of the beholder, what is high viability, but from the standpoint of investment opportunity, we saw that. That landscape is changing. It's evolving more than any of us could have ever imagined in the last few months. So the necessity to do this study will allow us at a granular level to understand those three areas and make an educated decision. No decision today other than to invest another injection of monies to understand the project scope better is being made today. We have the opportunity at a future point to end the project and or do else with it. So due diligence goes part and parcel with elected office and governance. We constantly hear it, and maybe to some people it has a negative connotation, but certainly due diligence is essential. This will give us the confidence to make a decision in a responsible fashion, and we will own that as your elected body. This additional investment and review will also enhance, staff haven't said that, I'll use those words, the project scope, because at some point, even if we elect not to do anything with it or formally do a piece of it or all of it at some point, it creates material information that a buyer or suitor or partner will want and need. So essentially we're doing upfront costs, we're spending upfront costs in order to ensure that the decision, whatever this body makes it in the future, is sound. But in the event we choose not to, it doesn't mean to another proponent or suitor, there are many out there who have different risk thresholds or portfolios that they will able to enjoy happily a project like this becoming part of their holdings. So this is a critical piece. This is a go or no-go from the standpoint of doing that extra due diligence, and I certainly am trying my best to help the public understand that. And I will say this, I rarely do it publicly, but Managing Director Pankos had a great editorial, guest editorial in the Medicine Hat News a few weeks ago. It was very succinct, but incredibly detailed and made sense. And I've referred that to so many people in the public and family who equally challenge me and ask me about it, and I encourage people to look at it. But for certain today, I will be supporting this.
Councillor Sharps.
Thank you, Mayor Clark. I have a couple of questions. I'll start with my easiest one, and that is, we know what the process was. Is there a reason we didn't put this in the original budget versus coming back for a budget amendment? So this whole solar started 2 years ago, some ago. So to me, we were planning it out and we just did budget 6 months ago. Is there a reason we wouldn't have put this in the original budget?
Yeah, I think a few comments. This is part of that stage gate approach. We looked at, when we had interest in the project, we did our preliminary engineering, our preliminary economics, and then move forward with the purchase of the project. We then had to wait for the AUC decision to grant us ownership. And once that was done, that's when we could now move to this next step. So we were really waiting for that ownership transfer from the Alberta Utilities Commission.
Okay, so that was your key pivot point? Was that transfer? Okay. My second question is, when we talk about it, and I do know there's big industry that are very interested in this, so I do understand that. There's lots of pressure for some of these bigger companies to have alternate sources. I understand that. But for the average taxpayer, what do they see as the benefit? Or do they?
Well, I think it goes into my last comments in my opening is we will only look at this project if it makes economic sense and adds value to our rate base and our citizens. So we'll look at this if we think there's an economically viable solution to this project and it can make sense for us as a city.
Thanks, Travis. I guess my question is, does that mean there's potential rates that will come down?
Specifically, we don't set our rates based on our generation cost. We set our rates based on the best of market over the next 12 months. So it's not a direct effect to our rates in that way. Our rates are set based on the best of the next 12 months.
Okay, so when I'm sitting at home reading this, and you gotta remember, I'm an HR person, not that smart, so I'm sitting there going, hey, how does this benefit me? Will I see, and so like just from Joe Blow taxpayers sitting in their house, what's my benefit? I get the benefit from a big industry point of view. What's the benefit to the taxpayer? Like, if you could just dumb it down for me.
So maybe I'll try a different way. The generation plant as a whole provides a dividend to the city under the current organizational structure. We anticipate this would provide additional value. It can reduce the carbon costs for our existing assets. Like I said, it would look to have an internal rate of return. So all those would add to the value of the generation unit and provide a dividend back and reducing our carbon obligations.
Okay.
And attracting industry as well.
I get that. I do hear that in my world and field that they are looking for that. And I do, and you know, the average citizen that doesn't work in that field isn't gonna hear that. So it is important that they know. But as I read this also, I'm going down to the very bottom where it says the scope of this ask is appropriate to be funded from the Energy Transition Fund. Where is that Energy Transition Fund funded from?
Managing Director Pancoast?
Thank you. Through the chair, if you may recall, the Energy Transition Fund was a new reserve created last year that dedicated $75 million in that fund towards energy transition projects, for which our finance team has confirmed this would be eligible to draw from that fund.
Okay, and it was funded from tax or from reserves or?
Through the chair, if I may, much more generically, our reserves are typically funded through the profit centers of the city, which include both energy as well as environmental utilities and land. That's typically where the reserves have developed through time, as well as grants, but those grants are typically used for capital projects on the municipal side and taxes, but taxes are used towards operating purposes on the municipal side as well. So the net cash proceeds from the business side of the municipality typically fund the reserves themselves.
Okay, and then I guess that leads to my next question is, so we won't see a tax increase because of this?
Through the chair, I will not guarantee that whatever we invest in won't see some risk. However, we have typically invested in our business units to date, including all of our gas plants, and done so successfully because we take a risk-managed business approach to these opportunities. But we do recognize that there is possibility of downside. That's why we are keen to pursue further detailed due diligence so that we can have improved confidence for council making the investment decision.
And if I
Yes,
could
go
just,
ahead, yeah.
for clarity, the idea of whether a tax increase will be necessary or rates will go down, that is part of this review. That will provide us greater visibility into those things so that whether it's this council or next council, they're making a decision based on how it will financially impact the city as an organization, taxpayers, and industry.
Yes, correct. And Director Tuchscherer alluded to this. Staff will not want to, it wouldn't be appropriate for us to recommend proceeding to a construction phase at that later post-due diligence phase unless we believe through the due diligence and the economic analysis that we will see an expected net return to the city. That means we would expect to see a net financial gain that would flow back through dividend. So not a cost to the taxpayers and not a cost to the ratepayers, but a benefit through the form of dividend and hopefully additional attractant opportunity for future industrial customers. We have actually turned away customers or not been able to attract potential growth customers who are looking for green energy already. So we are mindful of that. However, we want to make sure that the economics still make sense given all that is evolving through time, especially on a long-term basis because these are long-life assets, as Director Tuchscherer had indicated.
Thank you. Sorry, Councillor
No,
Sharps.
no,
go
no,
ahead.
I'm fine. So I'm still waiting to hear a little bit more. I have to say, I think some of my discomfort is I would have preferred to see an MCC operational and all the risk go under an MCC. I'm just hesitant with we're doing an MCC on one side, or we're contemplating an MCC on one side, and we're doing this on the other, and really they're both energy. So I guess I feel like part of me, from a business point of view, I'm going, well, wait a minute, so if we're gonna fund this from the transition, and if the due diligence ends up that it is viable, so we spend the 675,000, it's viable, MCC starts, will this automatically go into the MCC after? Sorry, you're.
Yes, through the chair, if council does end up approving an MCC and we get to the point of an operational MCC, municipally controlled corporation, this asset would flow over into the city-owned municipally controlled corporation, correct?
If I, sorry, may
no,
note as
I'm good.
well, even after there's a decision point on the MCC, there's quite a lengthy period of time with the public hearings and all the business cases that have to be prepared, et cetera, with respect to actually operationalizing the MCC. So can't recall what exactly that timeline looks like, but even after we make a decision, it's quite
A lengthy
process.
Which leads me to my very last question, and then I'm done. The very last part of the briefing note says public participation required for implementation. Can you just touch on what that actually is?
Thank you, through the chair. As a minimum, we will have a regulatory obligation for us to return to the Alberta Utilities Commission to pursue a permit amendment to shift it from the current 325 megawatt, where the power bypasses the city entirely, into a up to 75 megawatt sized asset for at least a first phase, with it changing the connection directly into the city. So there is a required regulatory element of engaging identified stakeholders through that process. And beyond that process, we're definitely keen to make sure that the community is aware of the facts where they can be shared on this project, because we recognize there is misinformation and misconception about the project in the community.
Thank you.
Councillor Hyder.
Thank you, Mayor Clark, and through the chair, just a couple real quick questions here. One comment. Thank you, Managing Director Pankos and Mr. Tuchscherer, for all the work and your team that has gone into this, because it's been a lengthy process. Just one thing. So the $675,000 basically is to help you get to the point where, for clarity, obviously more information, we have lots of questions around the table. That tonight is the decision we're making upon, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Because we don't want to, we were talking today and we have you know, a small amount of time left for this council, and there's some huge decisions that we need to make. And I would hate to be someone who rushes in. This is as you can tell, it's a very tough conversation and a very big decision. I think I need to agree with a couple of my colleagues around the table. The MCC model, which is very exciting and seems to be the way that I feel this organization should go, it seems that we're putting the solar project ahead of having that model in our organization. It's too bad that we have these, we've put ourselves into these tight timelines with the solar project, and that we didn't have the model prior to this. Those are just my comments, but if this is what we need to do to get more answers for us and the citizens of the community, that's something we have to do.
Councillor Robbins?
Yes, thank you, and through the chair. I'm normally a very decisive person. I read the things, I think about what I think is best, and then I decide, and then I stick with what I decided. And I've always struggled with this solar project because I just feel like I don't have enough information to decide. And ultimately, depending on the timeline, I may well not be the person who's making this decision in any event. But I feel like it's very difficult in this moment of time to say that I know what to do because there isn't enough information. And so when I read through the briefing note, and thank you for this, I'm going to mention a couple of things. I may quote a little bit of it here, that this ask today is to inform us how to optimize the value of this new asset. And I kind of, sorry to say this, but it's like marry, date, or dump. I don't actually know if you've ever, maybe never played that game. Maybe it's just me. It's a game, not a lifestyle. Like, I don't know how the city should proceed. Should we marry ourselves to this project? Should we dump it, or should we just flirt with it a little bit and see if somebody else starts to like it? I don't know. And so when I read optimize the value of the asset, taking into consideration customer and community interests, that makes me happy to know that there would be further community involvement in the decision and providing input. So I see this in the briefing note. And then, as you've indicated, as well as changing market and regulatory conditions, we are in a place of a big unknown. Then I go on the Shape Your City, one more thing. You have on Shape Your City and in the briefing note, 4 circles, council decision. And so we finished through circle 1, which was red. Interest, and then regulatory approval. So those are the 2 places we've passed to. And I see between regulatory approval, there's an analysis and evaluation piece. And I really think that the community has not fully understood that that analysis and evaluation piece has to be completed before we could make any large decision, either to not proceed or to proceed. And so I'm with the circle here that the analysis and evaluation is important. And we use the words due diligence for sure, use them in law all the time, but I'd like the analysis and evaluation sort of definition better. And then I look on the Shape Your City, and it has a really great sort of background to the other solar project out by Gas City and how it was different than this one. That was, I think, from the paper. And then it describes the city is vetting the project. So this is what it says on Shape Your City to determine how it will drive value. So council desire and decisions are going to be important. History and advantage. I think Managing Director Pankos has already indicated the advantage we've had of making decisions over time. The legislative regulatory requirements, these may change. Engineering studies, which is part of this 675,000. The financial analysis will also be done with this same fund. Public input is going to go into what we receive as well.
That's part of it.
And then you've already talked about some green energy demand. I'm assuming that whatever council gets is going to contain a lot of that information and more information about Alberta's electricity market. I feel like all of these things factored in together in a report that has an analysis and an evaluation is going to allow a better decision to be made. So when you talk about stage gates, or I think Managing Director Pankos talked a lot in the beginning about off-ramps. There's lots of off-ramps here, and I'm not quite ready to get off, but I'm also not ready to say I'm not getting off, you know what I mean? So I feel like this is money that our energy business has put into reserves for these types of critical analysis data background before important decisions are made. So I'm going to support the budget ask to spend the money to know more so that decision makers can make better decisions. I have no opinion about whether I would vote for or against the project if it comes to me until I see this. And then hopefully that data will make it very clear to me, Mary Daternup, I'll pick one for sure if I'm asked to. And if it's not, it'll be another council in the same position, but at least they will have the information they need to make a good decision. So thank you.
All right, I don't see any further speakers. I understand that this is a lot of money and there's a lot of frustration, I think, or concern in the public with respect to this project. I think that we would be doing a disservice to our energy group and the City of Medicine Hat to not figure out whether or not this makes financial sense. So we're in this far. The next step is just to find out, does it make financial sense or does it not make financial sense? And I hope that we all can keep open mind about when that information comes forward, that is it good for the city or is it not good for the city? And there may be other things that are not financial that that the community wants us to consider, and I'm hopeful that that opportunity will be provided to them in a robust way, as indicated by Managing Director Pankos having to go back to the AUC. I understand that some people will be very disappointed with this decision, but certainly from my perspective, it was always, I suppose I didn't realize we would need a budget amendment, but it was kind of always part and parcel of the exploration of this project that we would determine whether or not it made financial sense to the city. So this, to me, was part of the initial purpose of the acquiring the project. So I think we do owe it to our community to at least make sure if it makes financial sense or not. So with that, Councillor Sharps.
Thank you. I just have one question. So is this the last step of due diligence? So is there going to be cards on the table? Is there any chance there's going to be another request for additional due diligence? Or once we get the due diligence, we have to do further data? What are the thoughts on that?
No, we don't anticipate any further steps. We expect after this process is complete that we would then be moving forward with a decision on final investment.
And one last question. Do we have a rough timeline on when you expect the results of the due diligence, if it gets approved tonight?
As mentioned earlier, if we are approved for the budget, it would take a month or so to get some requests for proposals on this in place, and then approximately 4 months to complete some of the work on this. And then we'd also have to go back and do some, final report and final analysis, then bring it forward to council. So I would say 5 or 6 months down the road.
Thank you.
We can answer questions from the public right now. There will be an opportunity for public engagement at a later date. Okay, I apologize, sir, and from my council members as well, we cannot engage at this point on that. However, if someone wanted to put forward, if someone on council wants to put forward a motion to delay or postpone, they are certainly at liberty to do so.
Mayor Clark, sorry, I didn't hit the button. So I guess I got a couple of questions. What does delaying look like? I feel like I'm seeing a lot of signs, no, and that's not influencing me, just so you know. What's influencing me is I feel like you don't have the same information. And not that I'm completely sold. I'm not opposed to solar. I'm a little confused as to why there's a budget amendment. I have to admit, I feel like, but I get it, Travis, so it's not a judgment, but it's just my thoughts. So, and I understand what the community is saying is why wouldn't that have been part of the due diligence prior? They don't always get the same information we get, so that is incredibly frustrating for the community. So my question then is, what happens if there's a motion to delay? What happens? Like, where does that put us?
Like I said, that would put us in a spot where we don't have all the information, the detailed design, the detailed cost estimate to be able to make that final investment decision. That would then push us up against those contractual deadlines, that if we aren't able to make a decision at that point, the project could be put in a tougher spot, or potentially a spot where we can't move forward.
What is our contractual?
Okay, hold the phone. I appreciate that everyone here has an opinion on this, but in council, we have to maintain decorum, so no shouting out. Thank you. Councillor Sharps?
Actually, I forgot my question. That's okay. Thank you, Travis. I appreciate it. No, that's all good.
Sorry about that, Councillor Sharps. Any further questions, comments, motions to amend? Okay, then we'll vote. Councillor? And that passes. Thank you, Mr. Tuchscher and Managing Director Pancoast. If you like, I can give a minute if people want to, they're planning on staying. Okay. The next item on the agenda is severance payments, and this was a notice of motion put on the table or put forward by Councillor Sharps at our last meeting. Councillor Sharps, if you would like to make your motion, I will then ask for a seconder, and you can go ahead and I'll come back to you to speak to your motion. Do you want to just take 5?
Yeah, I'll give them a few moments. Can't
Okay.
believe you don't want to hear the rest of this. It's so exciting. What would you like me to do?
You can start if you like, or
Okay, is everyone good if I start? Okay.
go ahead.
Oh, no, that's okay. Do you want me to make a motion? Yeah, I'll make a motion. Can I have a motion to make, a second or a motion to recess for 5 minutes? You're welcome. Can I get a second? Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Hyder will vote. All right, so we'll be back in 5 minutes, which is 7:58. I'll call the meeting back to order, and we were at Councillor Sharp's making her motion at 10.4.
Thank you very much. My motion is as follows. I move that administration be directed to provide a line item report on a tri-annual basis coinciding with the audit report that includes the following information: a cumulative summary of, let me just start that, a cumulative summary of all severance agreements, details of any bonuses awarded during the reporting period. The motion seeks to enhance financial transparency and to ensure that elected officials are well informed about the expenditures impacting our community.
For the sake of debate, I will second.
Thank you, Councillor Sharps.
Thank you very much. So I'm going to just read the preamble that I wrote because it's easier than trying to do this off the cuff. So in our ongoing commitment to accountability and transparency in governance, I actually thought of proposing this notice of motion for several reasons. So recently we implemented a 5.6 property tax increase, which has led the community and some members of community to seek better understanding of how their money is being spent. It is essential that we provide both council and the public with clear insight into the expenditures related to all operations, including wages and severance, while ensuring that the confidentiality of each severed employee is maintained and their names are not disclosed. So as such, my motion was based on council directing administration to provide us with a triennial report detailing the amount of severance paid, categorized by department, with the relevant 4-month period. Geez, I can talk, honestly. Additionally, an annual summary report should be presented to council which aggregates the total amount of severance, categorized by department, as part of the city's financial audit system. And so I think this was where your question was, City Manager. This will be incorporated as of June 17th, 2025. That's not this last one, this coming forward. By adopting this motion, we will ensure that council members and the public are well informed of severance expenditures. It's vital, in my opinion, for promoting accountability and enhancing transparency in our governance practices, hopefully fostering more trust within our community and reinforcing our commitment to fiscal responsibility and management. So now I'll go off the cuff. One of the reasons this came to mind is as we're in a world right now where absolutely everything we're doing is being FOIPed and everything we're having FOIPed is being on social media, why not just get in front of it? So again, this came to a time when Mayor Clark was at the end of the horseshoe, and this was one of her requests. Not that I'm doing that because it was one of her requests. I spent considerable amount of time looking at if this was covered under FOIP, and it doesn't look like it is covered under FOIP. It is not protected. So if it's not protected, I think we should just get in front of it. The more we can get in front of some of this information, again, it's not a line item, it's an aggregate, and maybe it just holds us all accountable a little bit more too, to making the right decisions, knowing that our decisions are going to be out in the open. It just holds us all a little bit more accountable. So that's it.
Councillor McGrogan.
Thank you. Probably a question for Councillor Sharps. I'm just wondering, when you put this together, was there any other communities, municipal governments in Alberta that you know of that are doing this now? Are they being reported on a regular basis that we're aware of?
Yeah, so there was, I believe there was 3, and I have to find them again. But I think the biggest one that I found was the province of Alberta and their act on financial transparency. And it's something that I know that they're trying to push. But you can literally, much to Councillor Robbins' point, you can literally go on and see what every individual makes, even if they were there 10 minutes and if they got severed and what their severance was. And you're not seeing the backlash you think you're seeing because they're just being transparent about it. It's there. We're not making people go search for it because they're going to get it. So if they're going to get it, let's get in front of it.
Just to follow up, City Manager, in your experience, is this a common practice in other municipalities that you're aware of?
Thank you, and through the chair to Councillor McGrogan, my understanding is that no. For example, Strathcona County does give that information, but it's enclosed. One thing that I do have concerns about, and there is mention here in the notice of motion, the city of Calgary. However, we just had time to do a cursory look, and a lot of the data that is being asked for here, we couldn't find it on the city of Calgary. So I'm concerned about confidentiality for our staff. I'm concerned about unintended consequences. Aggregate's fine, but if the aggregate, there's one person doing it and it shows that, then you're going to very easily be able to suss out who that person is. All I would request, if this does go forward and is passed, is the opportunity for our People Services Department to come back with a jurisdictional scan to understand what is out there, what's appropriate before any decisions made.
A jurisdictional scan has already been conducted and has come to council. And yeah,
Through the chair to the chair, but not for these specific items, because there's
we're
quite a
just
lot.
on severance right now, so that's just item 10.4.
Okay.
So, and my understanding, and I'm happy to be wrong, but my understanding is this is 100% FOIPable. Any member of the public can put a FOIP request in and get all this information.
Through the chair, I would like to confirm that, and I would like to have some background and context around these metrics.
Okay, well, that's on the provincial site. So I went to the FOIP, or the FOIP site, and that's where it says severance is not protected. So I'm not sure if that's had any changes. Again, it may not pass, so, but again, if it doesn't pass, my fear is we're gonna get FOIPed and it'll just be on social media anyways.
Councillor Van Dyke.
Yes, thank you through the chair. So I understand Councillor Sharp's desire for transparency, but I won't support this motion for several reasons. So first of all, we are a small community where people know everybody. And it would be very easy to tell, especially if you're looking at a quarterly report on severance, even an annual report, who those numbers may apply to. I also think that doing a total amount can seem like a lot, but there is no context provided. So no one would know the duration of that employee's employment with the city, the circumstances of them leaving, the decisions that were made by management for around that severance, if there was already an agreement in place in advance of their employment that required a certain level. And so that number could be just taken and used as a weapon in the community without any context. And we're just not a big enough place to do that. This isn't the 4 million people of the province. It's not the 1.4 million people of the city of Calgary. It's the 65,000 people in Medicine Hat, where strangely enough, I can't go anywhere in this city, it's not strange really, where I don't know someone or are related to someone. And so to say that people are not going to know who it is or not figure it out, I don't think is very accurate. They will know, they will figure it out, and it will be harmful to them. And so that is why I won't support this. Thank you.
Councillor Knodel.
Thank you, Mayor Clark. Through the chair to city manager. I'm just curious if there is a way, and I think that what I'm hearing from you is that you need some more time and some more collaboration with our People Services Director to kind of suss out how this can fit. My instinct is telling me that it shouldn't be something that we should fear. It just has to be done tactfully and in a way that that has some vetting. So I think I'm curious if you feel like it's possible to make it work, and I'll just leave it at that for now.
Through the chair to Councillor Knodel, no, definitely not opposed to this, because I think it's really important that council understands trends, and we just have to make sure that we're doing it correctly and that we have all the data. Like I know Councillor Sharp said she knows that this FOIP thing is, but I would like to double check through our FOIP people and a legal team so that the information we're giving you is accurate before you make the decision. The other thing that the notice alluded to was that this data is all here, but we've been very clear with council that it takes time with our systems that we're improving and our processes. We don't have data like that. And these metrics are not that easy to access. The other
We're
thing.
just with respect to severance right now.
Yep.
So severance, can we produce the severance? So you'll have an opportunity to comment on the HR metrics after, but this particular motion is just with respect to the severance payments. Oh, and bonuses, yeah. So is that the information you're saying that we don't easily have in our system? Can you put in the mic?
I would appreciate not being interrupted. Thank you. So to Councillor Knodel, that's what I'm concerned about, yes, but are the parameters in place when we're asking for that data? Okay?
Councillor Dumanowski.
Yeah, through the chair, I believe a lot of what has already been said. For the most part, Councillor Van Dyke said a lot what I would say, so I'm actually going to reserve a lot of my comments, but I will say my experience and my understanding is certainly this kind of information is available in closed meeting to a board, in this case council, where it's extraordinarily appropriate. And after all, we have one employee, that's our city manager, whom we evaluate, adjudicate via an annual review. And so to me, this is overreach. We've used transparency in so many ways this term. I'm all for it, and I'll probably get beat up for even saying that, but there are limitations where reasonableness plays its role, and I think there's so much context that has to be given in this regard, and that's our city manager's role, to give it to this council in a closed meeting where we adjudicate, again, annually, her performance. So I won't be supporting it. As far as social media is concerned, gotta be careful what I say. There's lots of stuff on social media posted by a lot of people, and I think we all can agree, I look at it very limitedly because of its validity in my life, and some people live by it. But I can tell you, certainly half of it has extraordinary untruth, or is completely false, or completely revised or modified to suit the person who's posting it. And unfortunately, unless we take the time to understand the information, or we allow the people who are supposed to disseminate information to do that dissemination through the proper means, there's always going to be all kinds of information out there. And again, I'll end on this is appropriate, but I think it should be done via our employee in a closed meeting going forward.
Councillor Robbins.
Thank you, Mayor Clark, through the chair. Yeah, it's going to sound like a broken record. Severance in the Government of Alberta, Councillor Sharps is quite right, is published, I think, twice a year, if I'm not mistaken. The legislative background of that is a little bit different. You have the Alberta Public Agencies Governance Act, and of course, we're governed by the MGA, so the reasons that might happen are slightly different. And City Manager Mitchell, you did look this up for us and sent us some municipal scan information back in July 2024, so some time ago. And it looked like at the time most municipalities were not disclosing, or they were disclosing in a confidential meeting to City Council, as Councillor Dumanowski has suggested. I'm also really mindful of Councillor Van Dyke's comments about Medicine Hat is a mid-sized city, but at its core, it's a small town. And my concern is not that the taxpayers don't know where the money is going. My concern is that the employee who might have been let go, who wants to get another job, may have information about them that's easily discernible just by figuring it out. And I'm worried about the harm that would come to them, having already, no longer being an employee here, what does that mean? How do they continue to get employed elsewhere when their personal information might be out in the public? But having said all of that, I do agree with Councillor Sharps that if this is information that you could apply under FOIP to receive anyway, then I agree with Councillor Sharps, as a lot of times we're behind that when we could disclose it ourselves. Things like we've talked about for our policies, well, we could put those online, like lots of questions that people have. And I take those questions not as necessarily criticism to city, but sometimes it is curiosity about the way city works. Or you may think something is a certain way, but then you know, get the information and you realize, oh, that's not the case. And so I'm not going to support the motion as it is, because I would like that FOIP answer. And because if the answer is you could get it anyway, then I think why would I, it would be easier for the city to say, you don't have to fill out the FOIP paperwork to get this information. Here's the information. And then we could say, where there are privacy interests, City Solicitor Bullock would of course go through all of the contracts to make sure that there isn't something in them that would be violating. That's a lot of work. So I want to know the first question first, which is, would this information be subject to FOIP in any event? And I agree with Councillor Sharps, when we have information that's subject to FOIP, why don't we be the ones who release it? So I'm not going to support it, but I'm supportive, if that makes sense.
We could postpone it if someone makes a motion. Councillor McGrogan?
Yeah, I appreciate those. That's exactly the comments I was going to make. I'm really, if this is FOIPable anyway, then we should be getting out in front of it. And even my motion earlier was similar. If it's all FOIPable, then let's get out in front of it and save city staff time answering to the FOIP requests, whatever it might be, and get it done with. So I would like to, so the second piece, so we've kind of forgotten, it's also details of bonuses awarded. I think they're two kind of separate things, but they both may be answered by determining whether or not this is a FOIPable issue. So I'm wondering if I would like to put a motion forward to postpone this, so that city manager has time to gather the appropriate information to be able to respond to whether these matters can be FOIPed and et cetera. So I don't know.
You can amend, someone else has to amend your motion.
So I understood that Councillor McGrogan has, sorry, I spoke without you
No,
acknowledging.
I'm just waiting for him to make the motion of when he's postponing, because we just postpone it to a date.
Okay.
Councillor Knodel, are you speaking on the motion to amend?
I was going to make a comment about notice of motions. I just, I can save it until afterwards, until we're done our notice of motion, and then I have a comment.
Okay, so Councillor McGrogan?
So if we could postpone until the first meeting in June, which it appears is the 2nd of June. Anyway, that would be my motion, is to postpone this until the 2nd of June to allow city administration time to look at the FOIPability of the information that's in this motion.
Do I have a seconder?
I'll second the motion.
Thank you. I'm going to express a bit of frustration. I asked for this information back in February. I provided a detailed outline of Freedom of Information Act and what I saw to be the case law that was relevant to this issue. And so I'm quite frustrated that it sounds like it was never investigated whether or not severance agreements or payments were FOIPable or were subject to disclosure through a FOIP request. And, I did ask also for our terms, severance agreements. So just a little frustration there. Councillor Knodel, you are on the speaker's list for a different thing? Or
It's related, I would say.
okay, Councillor Knodel.
Okay, it's a rant. So my problem with these ever increasing notice of motions is not that they're problematic in their essence. I think that ultimately this is how many counselors feel like they should be, or they should be allowed to move the needle, which is fine. I just feel like the question that's in my head is we have dates that we want these delivered by, but our city manager and managing directors are acting on a very significant short-term strategic plan, and they've been tasked with some very large responsibilities in the last year of our term. Now we're sending them all on all of these side quests, which I completely agree, Mayor Clark, a lot of this information should be easy to get, but I don't think it is due to the way that our organization functions currently. It's a work in progress, and our city manager has made that known to us that there's a lot of things that need to improve. But I feel like we're setting our administration up for failure and then calling them out as being frustrated in the public sphere, and it's not really fair to them. There's no capacity, or there's no regard for capacity in the city manager role. And ultimately, if we keep piling tasks on and expecting staff to report back within the deadline that we give them, they're doomed to fail, as is also seen over email. If a student in a classroom was given an outline for an exam and 2 weeks to learn the content, but then there was a pop quiz every day on something new, they would fail the exam. Again, I do understand this is our city manager. She is paid well. She should be, she's dealing with a very large, complex organization that is, in simple terms, a bit messy and has a lot of room for improvement, as many people in the community have observed through the way that it doesn't function. Additionally, if the teacher never provided the student with a proper evaluation on the original outline, only added further new and different topics that would further amplify the problem. I'm not saying that our city manager shouldn't be providing us with this information, but we need to have some semblance of compassion and not criticize in the public sphere. Ultimately, my belief is that humans have capacity. Our city manager is a very effective leader, knows how to act on a request and has done so, and we have evidence in front of us about those things. It is demonstrating action in areas that we have requested. If we allow a minority of council to continue to dictate imminent priorities, it doesn't feel like we're functioning as a collective.
Councillor Sharps?
Yeah, thank you. So just so you're aware, one of the reasons this all came forward was a whack of emails was forwarded to me, and on the data, it was all FOIP'd, given to this individual by the city, and on there was all the bonuses paid. So again, it was FOIP'd. So with all due respect, I am not a minority segment of, I'm an elected official just like everybody else around this table. And when I'm trying to move the needle forward on so many items, we all are. But again, if they don't go to committees or we don't give answers, guess what? This is where we have to do it. We changed the procedure bylaw. Everybody around this table was the party to changing that procedure bylaw to make this a notice of motion. So I was left no other way but to do it. So when we don't get answers, I have no choice. But please don't ask me never to do my job, because that's never going to happen. I mean, I just not do it the way you want me to do it. But you don't do things the way I want you to do it, but that's because we're totally two different people. So all I would ask is that safe space get extended to me as well. I will also say that I agree with you. This was never about the city manager. I don't know why it is. I don't know where that's coming from. My notice of motion doesn't once refer to the city manager. It does say administration. So to me, this has nothing to do. This is not personal. It's not personal to anybody in the room. It is my job as an elected official to bring things forward. This has, and I honestly believe this would have been coming forward a lot sooner. So there's things happening. But I do think this is a very easy check because we have released it in a FOIP. And I actually sent it to most of you. Probably months ago, you may have deleted it. But there was lots of information. And again, so it's out in the public. And we're leaving them to come up with their own narrative. And I'm saying, let's control the narrative with the truth. That's all I'm saying. Let's take the narrative, use the truth, and then we're clear. Because there's no manipulation of the truth. Let's just give them the truth. And then we're done. So if anybody in this room is thinking this is personal, I would swear on a stack of Bibles my intention is not personal, but it is to do my job 100%. That was my very last comment. So I will leave it at that. So we are postponing it. Oh, I knew that. So if the vote goes through on a postponement, I'm hoping that we won't take the full June 2nd because there is FOIPs out in the community. So, and I am sorry if any member of council thinks this is personal, because it's not.
Okay, just before we vote on the motion to amend, and then we'll have to vote on the original motion, so this applies to Councillor McGrogan's request for information, Councillor Sharps's request for information. We are a government body. We get to make laws limiting what the people in our city can do. We get to force them to pay us money in the form of taxes. We even can put take interest in their property if they don't pay their taxes. That is an incredible amount of responsibility. And there has to, that privilege of being able to, tax people and make laws comes with the responsibility to those people in our community in the form of information. Information is also of how we're spending the money that we're getting from them. Information is also a necessary aspect of democracy. People cannot participate in their democracy if they don't have the requisite information to so participate. That is one of the fundamental purposes, or one of the fundamental criteria of a functioning democracy. I like democracy. I want us to have a robust democracy. And I think going into working for a public body, a government, that should just be known and standard. You don't have to choose to work for a public body, but you do because of lots of reasons. But one of the things about working for a public body is that we have to report the money that we're spending to the public so that they can keep us accountable and participate in the democratic process. So I struggle a lot with, trying to not disclose information that would be disclosable under with Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act, because that is there to protect our democracy and hold us accountable. And if we're uncomfortable with that, I think that's a bigger question. I also feel like just disclosing the information prevents a lot of work in the form of multiple people making multiple requests for information. That requires a lot of staff time. Every time they have to go through each thing to make sure that the right things are redacted, could result in a claim to the commissioner. Simply disclosing the information, I think, is a way that we can save time for our city clerk's office and all of the departments that are required to provide the information to the city clerk for review. But again, as a public body, we do not have a choice about transparency and disclosure. That is a minimum bar, and I think we have to be happy to meet it, not trying ever to avoid it or skirt around it. We just have to get used to the fact that as a public body is part of our role. That is part of our function. City Manager Mitchell.
Thank you through the chair and to the chair. With your points about being a public body, we do understand that. We are not being obstructionist with information, but as the city manager, I have a I have a mandate from council that I'm implementing, and I have to make sure that we have the capacity to do the work. And I always am taking that into mind when I'm doing this. It is to make sure that we have the ability to complete these tasks and to make sure that we're giving council the right information. And if we take things out of context, it's on me as the city manager to make sure that council has the right context to make the information they're making, or the decisions they're making with good information and robust, thorough information.
Okay, seeing no further speakers, we'll vote on the, Counselor Van Dyke.
Thank you, through the chair. What are we voting on exactly right now?
I was just gonna say, the motion to amend, the motion to postpone rather. So if we make a motion to postpone, we don't actually need to vote on the main motion. Okay, so we're just voting on postponing this until June 2nd.
And then that will be coming back to council.
Yes, and
The motion will be coming back, or information will be coming back?
can we go back to the motion? Because that's a really good point, Councillor Van Dyke. I think around the table, it was the expectation that whether or not this information was subject to disclosure would come back to council.
So then we would need a motion requesting administration to bring us the information after this motion is,
Sure, that sounds
if this
good.
motion is
Yeah,
passed.
that
Okay.
sounds good.
Just
We
wanted to
could
make
add
sure.
it to the motion, but let's do two, just to make it quick and easy.
Okay, thank
Mayor
you.
Clark, so
Yep.
if this does not pass, then we vote on the main motion afterwards, right?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. All right, so we're voting on the motion to postpone. Okay, that passes. And would someone like to make a motion to have, to direct administration to provide an analysis of which of the items, severance and bonuses, are subject to disclosure should be publicly available via the Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act? Councillor Knodel.
Thank you, Mayor Clark. I was just gonna say through the chair to city manager, what is a reasonable amount of time for something like this to be completed?
Through the chair to Councillor Knodel, I do think Councillor McGrogan mentioned June, and I think that's reasonable.
So now we're waiting on a motion
Yeah,
okay, it's happening. It's being typed.
someone has to make the motion.
Yeah, I thought you were, sorry.
I'll make the motion.
Oh, okay.
I'm
Sorry.
just gonna wait for Stephanie to help me. I don't want to miss a part. Thank you, Stephanie, or Melissa, whoever's typing. Now, for clarity,
So council direct administration to bring forward, to provide to council, an analysis of which of the information. Can I just have a technical timeout? Don't type this. I'm suspecting that we may have a similar result on the next item. Do we want to add that item in now, or?
yes. I like that.
Okay, we'll still have to postpone the motion, but at least we won't have to do two motions. Okay. Administration to provide council an analysis of which information. Yep, you had it. In items 10.4 and 10.5 would be disclosable pursuant to a FOIP Act request. Sorry. It's, yeah, we know what you mean. I couldn't spell it either, probably.
Under pressure?
Is that what makes sense to you? Okay. Oh, yeah, request at the end of, after act.
Is everyone ready?
Does that, I just want to get, does that make sense to everyone, what it says?
So for clarity, what this means is we are asking city manager and the administrative team to go and evaluate which pieces of information would be available to the public if they were to submit a FOIP request, so that we know what is kosher to publicly disclose on our website or through whatever format is accessible to the public.
Yeah.
Is that helpful?
So do we have a seconder for that motion?
Do you want me to read it or no? You
Oh, yeah,
got that? Okay, I'll read it.
'Kay.
I don't have to, but I will. Council direct administration to provide council an analysis of which of the information in items 10.4 and 10.5 would be disclosable pursuant to a FOIP Act request.
I will second that.
And do we want to add the June 2nd, is this the June 2nd
Yes.
date?
Yeah.
Yes.
By June 2nd council meeting.
Yeah.
Good catch. We'll just add, yeah, there you go.
Yeah,
2025.
25.
Great job typing. Thank you. And Counselor Sharps, do you still second that motion?
Yes, I still do second that motion.
Okay. I don't see any speakers, so we'll vote on the motion. And that's unanimous. So moving on to 10.5, if we could get it on the table, so make a motion and second it, and then if someone wants to, if the motion maker wants to speak to it, we can still do that. And then presumably we'll have a motion to postpone it to June 2nd.
On 10.5?
Yes.
Oh, sorry. Yes, no,
Did I
no.
say the wrong one?
No, yeah, I do understand what you're saying. It just took me a while. Sorry. I move that council directs administration to prepare HR metrics similar to those published by the City of Calgary and other municipalities on our city website under the People Services section. This should include data such as total number of employees, on-site and remote, contractors, consultants, voluntary terms, involuntary terms, safety stats such as WCB, short-term disability, long-term disability. The website amendments should be completed by April 30th, as I do believe these are currently tracked statistics. My understanding is they're all tracked.
Okay, can I get a seconder?
I will second to get on the floor, and then we're going to be making a motion.
Yes,
to
Motion,
but
that's correct.
I will give Counselor Sharps an opportunity to speak to her motion first.
Cool, thank you. Again, so, again, I'm trying to just stop the conversations out in the community and have us control the information and have it good information going out. We are public servants, there's lots of communication out there. I'm tired of emails coming to me with vast amount of information that people are FOIPing. And the problem with the FOIP is there's no narrative to it. So they can make whatever narrative they want. And so, not that anybody's doing anything improper by any means, but we don't give them all the information. So it's really hard to speak to fact if you're not giving them fact. I would rather be the giver of facts and correct data, and then whatever they're upset about, I'm happy to own. But when they don't, when they're not given the accurate information, I think that's a problem. Now, that's my first one. The second reason was there's been lots of conversations about total number of employees on-site and remote. And again, I stand by remote workers. I always have. I think organizations have used remote workers for decades. I'm not in favor of using remote workers just because. If it's the right person for the job, and we know that they're going to be the right person and they live in Lethbridge, I'm okay with that. If that's going to further our city to do better, get better business in here, make good decisions, make efficient decisions, I will take competency over postal code any time of the day. But I also want to make sure that we don't have admin clerks that are being hired out of cities that should be local. So this should stop all of that, and that is currently on social media. And again, it's not rumor, they're posting LinkedIn pages. So I just think we have such an amazing city. We have a good administration. Let's just get in front of all the information. Let's be accountable to it. Because if we're making the decision, we must be comfortable with our decisions. So let's get in front of them. So I stand by that. So that's what I'm standing by. Except for I will take the April 30th date because we're going to postpone it to June 2nd. Correct?
If someone makes that motion.
Oh, right. Okay. Got it.
Councillor Robbins?
Yeah, I take a little issue, Councillor Sharps, with what you said, that people have not been given accurate information in FOIP. I don't think that's true. I think they have been given accurate information. They haven't been given the context when
I would agree.
So I just didn't want the notion out there that somehow inaccurate, when you apply for FOIP, you don't get the truthful information, right?
My bad.
Yeah, no.
They don't get a
it's okay.
narrative.
Yeah, that's what I just thought the context is what they don't get. In those moments. I just want to
No,
clarify.
I appreciate that. No,
Thanks.
that's okay.
Anyone wishing to make a motion to postpone?
I'll make a motion. This is
I'm-
10-5.
Oh,
sorry.
yes, you can. You can. I apologize. You made the last motion. So, yeah, go ahead.
So did I not, is this 10-6 or is this 10-5? Okay,
10-5.
so part of my motion in 10-4 was to include 10-5, correct?
Yes.
So, okay, and I still have to make this motion?
Yes, so we still have to postpone this one.
I will make a motion to postpone 10-5 to
To-
June 2nd.
Thank you. Any, Counselor Canoto, your name is on the speakers list. Okay, all right, so seeing no speakers, we'll vote on the motion to postpone. Andy seconded. Thank you. So just to be clear, if it didn't register in the mics, Counselor McGrogan seconded Counselor Canoto's motion. Counselor Hyder? Okay, that's unanimous. Moving on now to item 10.6, local suppliers. This is another notice of motion that Counselor Sharps put forward at last meeting. So over to you, Counselor Sharps.
Thank you very much. This is my last one of the night. So I move that council direct administration to identify alternative suppliers to Amazon and all US-based vendors where feasible and consistent with applicable trade agreements to prioritize local suppliers. Additionally, I propose that council direct administration to provide a report back of the increase, if any, in local spend.
Seconder?
I'll second that.
Thank you. Counselor back to Counselor Sharps to speak to her motion.
Thank you. So I take no credit for it. I was actually listening to Mayor Valerie Plante in Montreal, and she probably started this right after the tariffs became an issue. I think she was one of the first mayors to make this. So I'll just read this first and I'll do a little bit of explaining. As we navigate the complexities of trade agreements and market dynamics, it is essential that we prioritize local business and suppliers whenever possible. I was inspired by the strategy Mayor Valerie Plante of Montreal, sorry if I slaughtered your name, and numerous other mayors and councils across Canada. I believe we have an opportunity to strengthen our local economy by seeking alternatives to large US-based vendors such as Amazon. By directing administration to identify alternative suppliers where possible, we can foster economic resilience and support our own local economy. While Amazon may have previously offered lower costs, we must consider the broader implications of our purchasing decisions at this time, especially in the light of recent breaches of the trade agreement that could lead to increased costs to Canadian and specifically Medicine Hat residents. It is crucial that any increase in spending remains within our community rather than flowing out to external economies. Furthermore, I propose that council request a report from administration on the impact of this initiative. In other words, if it shows that it's burdensome and not cost-effective, we would be able to revoke that decision, specifically focusing on the local spending. This will be able to track our progress and ensure that we're making informed decisions that benefit our local residents and our economy. That is it. Obviously, I'm not trying to breach any trade agreements. We have some local, provincial, Western trade agreements that obviously we still have in play, but there is a current breach of the US trade agreement. We're not the first that would be making this motion. It's actually rampant right across Canada to just make sure that we're supporting local. And if there's going to be a 25% tariff increase on some of the products we're buying, I'd rather keep the 25% in this market.
Councillor Knodel.
Thank you, Mayor Clark. I'm just wondering if there's any internal strategies that have already been employed as a result of the tariffs, and where our managing directors have collaborated around that. That's the wrong grammar, but you get what I'm saying.
City Manager Mitchell.
Actually, I can answer that
Yeah.
through the chair. We're meeting with the supply chain group to better define what we mean by local. So in instance, we know that we may have a major hardware store provider in the community that employs local, but may have their headquarters in the United States. So we do want to be mindful of the impact to the community on those larger stores that do employ citizens of the city. We are looking to see what kind of information we can pull from our systems while still ensuring that we're buying the quality products we need, and as well what we have in current contracts, because we would not want to be breaking those for legality reasons. So I just wanted to clarify that as we define what local means, there is an impact to the broader community depending on where the corporation's headquarters are versus local stores that are still employing.
Can I ask a follow-up?
Yeah, Councillor Knodel.
Thank you so much. Through the chair, I'm just curious how often city staff depend on something like Amazon. And you have no context. So
Day 6,
Yeah,
definitely do not have contacts for that, but we could look into it.
City Manager Mitchell.
Thank you. Through the chair, I'm going to turn it over to the chair of the Corporate Services Committee because we just had an update on that.
Councillor Dumanowski.
Yeah, through the chair. So my comments were going to be, a lot of this already is in our current policy. I'll use the word loosely. Tibor had presented to the Corporate Services Committee 5 weeks ago, maybe on this, so it should have come through council. Probably at the meeting I was absent. And there's an annual review of all the categories of which we utilize services and supplies outside of our city stores. In fact, it was incredibly heartening to hear that the vast majority, if I recall, it was 75% of our products were sourced in a true local sense. There is provision for staff outside of city stores to use currently the likes of Amazon and other local purveyors, but and there are regulations around that. I would imagine, I off the top of my head, a lot of it has to do with price point, urgency, et cetera. So largely, a lot of this is already in existence. And so, and happily, to the local economy's benefit, and I made those comments very happily as chair at that meeting. So the only thing that I see that may be sticking out in this motion is to one of the points that the Managing Director Campbell, I got to use your name for the first time, small win for me tonight, indicated that some of our supply chain may in fact be, as we've indicated and heard through the tariff conversation, maybe American side or Canadian side, and often has an reciprocating, I don't want to use that word, but relationship. And so we got to be very sensible about that. And certainly prioritizing local suppliers, there's always been a hope and goal, at least notionally, to use local suppliers, but we do have to be mindful of the trade agreements, and there are fancy names for them that always change, and so they escape me. But so to my point, a lot of this is already occurring, so I'm happy to say that it's in existence, and I'm not sure if there are any pieces to your motion tonight, Councillor Sharps, that would be outside of what we're currently using.
Since it was a directed at Councillor Sharps. I'm going to let Councillor Sharps respond to that and then move on to Councillor Van Dyke.
Sure. So one of the reasons, as you know, I'm vice chair of audit. And one of the things that came up in not this last audit meeting, but the audit meeting before, was that there was substantial use of Amazon cards. So it sounds like you and I have different information, so maybe we could just get that information. And then we can make a decision. Is that hard to pull? Like a vendor?
Through the chair, no, we can pull a vendor.
So maybe that, and then if I'm understanding this, because I mean, I'm happy to be wrong, Councillor Dumanowski, but it wasn't this last meeting it was the meeting before that, or the meeting before that, and I had asked about the local spend in terms of a credit card or using Amazon, and it was a substantial use of Amazon because it did get here faster. It was, and I get it, like it makes sense. It saves people time. So paper, for example, it's easier to get it from Amazon, even though it might be cheaper to get it from Staples. But to your point, Staples might be a US company, but it's the Canadian employees. So that makes sense to me because it's keeping our local people employed. So there is a balance, but I'm wondering if it's easy to pull the report, that would be great, and then I'd be happy to keep postponing my thing. But again, there's merit to the whole looking at it. If other communities are doing this, it's because they're just trying to make sure that we stay ahead of any tariffs that are going to impede. I mean, maybe people around this table aren't going to be affected by the tariffs. I am. So as a business owner, I go, oof, okay, where is this going to affect me? So from a business point of view, if we just get in front of that, that would be great. And our city just looks to us to do those kind of things and takes the lead. So,
Councillor Dumanowski, do you have a follow-up?
I did, but I mean, I don't disagree. I don't think we're in disagreement with each other. In fact, when that report came forward, there were categories that had a percentage of quantum based on Amazon, for example, or local supply for small items, immediate, quick resolution items. And I know part of that is the question, right? Is it the simplicity of it or not? But it was well communicated, and my best recall, and maybe my colleagues recall, it did indicate in the end, and I'm certain when it comes back, it will indicate that a lot of those small buys in total quantum are really, really minuscule in the total buy. But if we really want to send a message and move forward, I mean, moving that I guess decision forward to completely remove it would send a signal and be more philosophical in nature. But from a pure cost and quantum standpoint, it was not significant. But I can't wait to have that information come back.
Okay, Councillor Van Dyke.
Yes, thank you through the chair. It sounds like this may be deferred until information can come back, but I just had a question regarding the motion to Councillor Sharps. It says, provide a report back on the increase in local spending. And I wondered, right, so do you mean that you want to see what it would have cost if we'd bought through external suppliers and then how much we spent locally, or just that we could say the internal or the local spend was this much? Because I think there might be quite a lot of work if they have to do a price comparison for each item to see.
well, I don't think I'm asking for a line item. So basically, if Joe Procurement buys $100,000 worth of paper per month, and now he buys it from Staples instead of Amazon, and it's $101,000, we know there's a $1,000 increase. I'm not asking for rocket science,
Okay.
but because there's two sides to it, in all fairness, if it's $110,000, maybe that's not worth the argument. But to Councillor Dumanowski's point, it's minuscule. It's not minuscule when you're the small business owner. And if they're the ones paying the tariffs, let's make sure that it stays here versus goes abroad.
Okay, I've heard a suggestion, but no motion on just on the idea of having it just information come back before we actually direct moving suppliers. So just, that's a note. Councillor Hyder?
Just quickly through the chair, I completely support this motion, Councillor Sharps, for many reasons. And It's funny, my recollection is pretty much the same as Counselor Dumanowski, so it looks like we need to have some information before we make some decisions. So are you looking for someone to make a motion, Mayor Clark? To defer it till we have,
Certainly that is,
Yeah.
we could have that, yes.
if I can make that, if you'd like. I make the council, okay, council postpones. What am I saying, Stephanie? The above motion until we have proper information.
You have to postpone it to a date.
Okay. City Manager Mitchell, do we want to do June 2nd like everything else? Or?
Through the chair to Councillor Hyder, I'm just a little worried because we do have the clerk and the managing directors and I are working on our agendas. We have a lot of really full agendas through all the way till June. With regards to this, I know it's evolving and I know it's urgent. I would just say possibly second meeting in June, just to make sure that we don't have everything jammed up.
Yeah, yes. So second meeting in June.
And could you, and 2025, would you also add to that what you're looking to come back on June 16th?
Well, it just sounds like we had different information as far as suppliers than others, and maybe just a broad look at who we are supporting in our community or Canadian suppliers as well. Yeah. 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 We had the annual procurement. Thank you.
Sorry, we can't hear, sorry.
We had the annual procurement report come to us with this information, so.
Is it as simple as just forwarding that report? Because I didn't see it in the package. Maybe it's not due to come out?
Can I suggest, just because it's from the motion, that and direct administration to identify US-based vendors, current US-based vendors, and approximate usage? I'm just gonna try and get this down while it's in my head, and then certainly we can get clarity. US-based vendors, is a supplier different than a vendor?
Not really, it's.
Okay.
No.
I mean, I would say it's the exact same definition, but
I'm more worried about. Through the chair, to the chair, I'm more worried about, as MD Campbell just said, it's hard to define.
Yeah.
And we need to have context around it. We can't just say US vendors. It's more complex than that.
Can I, through the chair, can I just make a suggestion?
You can make your motion however you want. I was just making a
I'd like
suggestion.
to. The information that we received at corporate services, wouldn't that be helpful as a starting point that we could share that with the rest of council?
I did read that, that wasn't.
That would be a good starting point,
And
you have it. So
it
Okay,
was last.
so,
I just
okay,
don't.
so just for clarity, if you wanna we can discuss the merits of the amendment, but I think, or sorry, of the motion. But I think you're suggesting that the information you want to come back to council is the information that corporate services received at their last council or committee meeting?
It was like 6 weeks ago, or?
Your worship, I can't recall. Maybe
Yeah.
Director Barda is in the stands. Do you recall when that came through, Corp?
was
Counselor
It
Robbins?
was February 27th.
Okay.
And it was in our council package of March 17th.
Yeah. So it was in there.
So if I could, can I just pump the brakes on this motion here? I just, all I would love to, I just wanted to say is I agree with Councillor Sharps, and I'm fully supportive of this because I think it's what we have to do for our organization and our community. My brain goes to when we direct administration to do things like this, right away I'm thinking of, we've got the solar project, we've got MCC, we've got facilities for the future, we have 6 months left. And I think there are other things that for me are, not that Councillor Sharp, I think this is, it has to happen, but I'm just saying there are other priorities that we should be looking at. So for me, I don't feel it's an emergent rush for June 16th. If I have to put a date, I mean, I'm fine with, yeah, Q3. I'm not, I'm sorry, but I just feel that, and I agree,
Okay.
you know, I'm.
Counselor McGrogan has a suggestion. You don't have to make a motion at all.
I just
So-
agree.
My
Counselor
thought is,
McGrogan.
thank you, through the chair, my thought is, why not just make this generic? What I'm hearing from Councillor Dubinowski and Managing Director Campbell and City Manager is that they're astutely aware of this issue. Why aren't we just asking them to come back and just give a report on the status of purchasing vendors and local, you know, I think it would be a little, just more generic in nature. I'm thinking, so if we, my mind is to just adjust it to have them come back with a report on procurement practices generally and US based, no, you don't even have to put US based. It's just, I think everybody knows what we're trying to accomplish here. Just, I think a report on how we purchase goods and the information might be there already. So I don't support, I guess,
We don't actually have a motion on the table.
okay, we're still trying to
motion
build it.
postponed,
Okay, I just, okay, I would.
let alone a seconder, but I appreciate the suggestion. I think that it's up to Counselor Hyder, or if you want to make a motion, if you want to
No,
stop making motion.
Let's stop that and just, can I just, I really agree with Councillor McGrogan. Just a general, where do we get our products? That kind of information would be great. Again, just supporting Councillor Sharps because I think it's imperative, but we don't need a June 16th. We don't, as far as.
Well, we have to postpone the motion to a date.
Q3, anything like that?
Mayor Clark, can I ask a quick question? If Managing Director Campbell said this work
Yeah.
is already in order, is it, the wheel is already turning in that regard? Perhaps we just say, rather than getting really specific, ask our corporate services department or Managing Director Campbell to come forward with a brief summary of the, well, we already got an update about purchasing practices, about their definition of local and how that's going to affect purchasing moving forward. Because we've already had a purchasing summary come forward on the 17th of February. And I think that we're not going to get too much different information, but what Councillor Sharps is asking for is more defined action around this new definition of local. So could we get an update about what local is according to corporate services? And then how that's going to be acted on moving forward to, you know, remediate the impact of tariffs?
We certainly can do any of that.
But we need a
Someone just has
motion.
to word it in the motion. Yeah, Counselor Sharps.
Thank you. So when you look at the supply chain report from March 17th, it's all based on RFPs and tenders and prequals. There's nothing about local spend. So it's all the contracts that are awarded, not the procurement that goes to buy daily stuff or that kind of stuff. That's not, so I just looked at it again.
Through the chair,
Counselor Dumanowski?
thank you. I think we should ask Tibor to come make that presentation. I think 99% of this will be answered if he comes before us and answers it.
Sure. Well, the
really-
thing is, you said it was in, or I assumed it was in here. It's not in here. This is all about RFPs that are in here.
Well, it has to do with our spend and where we spend and how we spend and
That's not-
what
yeah.
amounts.
So it looks
came
like
through.
that might have been a verbal part of the presentation, but it's not on the,
Okay. Council postpone the above motion until, I don't agree with Q3 2025, given that this information presumably or is suggested to already exist in some form. I would prefer the city manager's suggested date of the second meeting in June. And direct council or administration to prepare a presentation for council's information to be delivered on June 16th, 2025 at the regular council meeting.
Through the chair, Mayor Clark, we could, like Councillor Dumanowski suggested, we could have Tibor come and do the presentation because it was very good and very informative, and I think, like Robert said, our questions would be answered.
Okay, so are you comfortable making this motion?
Sure, I can make that motion.
Do we have a seconder? Okay,
Allison will second that.
okay, Allison Van Dyke seconds. Any discussion? I have Councillor Robbins and Councillor Knodel on the speakers list. Are you speaking to the motion to postpone?
Yes.
Okay, Councillor Robbins?
Through the chair, I'll be very brief. I appreciated hearing from you, Managing Director Campbell, about the things that you're already doing. I'm not going to support the motion to postpone. I feel like the work is already in hand, and if you needed council direction on how to continue it, you would ask for it. So I'm not going to support the motion.
Okay, we will now vote on the motion to postpone and direction for a presentation. And that passes. Next item is 11.1 Parks and Recreation Budget Amendment Request, expanding urban canopies through park and residential tree planting. And we have Director Will with us and Manager Richter. Are you here just for questions or an introduction? I see Councillor Hyder, did you want to introduce the item?
Sure. Thank you, Mayor Clark, and through the chair. First of all, thank you, Manager Richter and Director Will, for hanging out with us tonight and waiting patiently to talk about one of my huge passions, and it's trees. I just wanted to give a couple bullet points. We only have so much time, and Manager Richter is going to go over this with us. I think this is imperative for our community and for many reasons, not just for the beautification, but for the health of our community. So a couple points in regarding the tree canopy. We have a citywide, were you saying? Do I want me to make the motion first?
Sure.
Okay. Here, I move that City Council approves a budget amendment of $3,459,519 million for a one-time operating initiative for Parks and Recreation Department's application for the Growing Canada's Community Canopies Grant. The GCCC grant would provide $1,709,519 with the City of Maisonet's contribution funded through reserves in the amount of $1,750,000. To that.
Can I get a seconder?
Second.
Thank
Okay,
you,
go
Robert.
ahead.
Sorry. Thank you, Councillor Dumanowski. We have a citywide planting plan that would have come forward in 2027, but grant opportunities, more planting for 50% the cost. Now, instead of waiting, may not be an opportunity like this again. We need to act. The request on its own doesn't have significant budget impact, debt limit, cash, etc. However, it is cautionary as the cumulative impact of more budget amendments throughout the year come forward. I will turn it over to Scott after this. I do have some other comments, but go ahead, managing.
Just before we do that, Councillor Canola, your name's on the speakers list. Did you want to speak before?
After.
After?
please.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm just eager.
Okay, go ahead, Manager Richter.
Thank you. And is the presentation? All right, and thank you, Mayor Clark, and through the chair. Thank you for this opportunity to present this exciting opportunity and expanding the urban canopy through parks and residential tree planting, growing Canada's community canopies, known as GCCC. Of note, there is additional information in this presentation that administration thought would be beneficial for council, and that being said, I'll be moving through this presentation quickly to meet the time requirements. A little bit of background. We were made aware of this growing Canada's Canopy program in spring of 2024. We prepared and submitted an application in October of 2024, and we received peer feedback review in January 2025, and are now awaiting final application commitment from the municipality. Of note, this budget amendment does not guarantee funding, only finalizes our application requirement. As mentioned, through the Growing Canada's Community Canopies, or GCC, it's funded through the Federation of Canadian Municipalities, and our application is to plant 2,400 trees on public spaces to meet 3 key objectives: succession and replacement of planting, expanding the forest, and enhancing canopy survival. This, in part with a school project, grade 5s and 6s in the community. Each would receive a container plant to plant on their property, and FCM will provide 50% matching. A little bit of history, just really quickly. We're in a semi-arid desert climate, and our history, as the pictures may show up there a little bit, there wasn't a lot of trees in Medicine Hat, but thanks to our forefathers, there's great insight and foresight to plant trees. Another picture down Finley Bridge.
Can I ask a question? Do trees include things like that would typically be shrubs or bushes, like chokecherry plants, Saskatoon berry plants, honeyberries? Could that be part of this?
Thank you, through the chair. It would not. To increase the canopy, we need higher trees. So what you're talking about would be more understory planting, and that would fulfill underneath the canopies. So this is part of the environmental framework and the municipal development plan. During engagement, both MDP and the environmental framework, we continue to hear from the public that people value trees and they're good. Our current state, we do know how many trees we have in our city. It's about 23,000 trees. That excludes a little bit of the ERs. We don't have accurate numbers for all of them, but we do know age, location, size, and species. And we do know some are getting old. Central Park's a good example of that, or Quanah Central Park. And some have declining health, and we've seen that in Gershaw due to the drought years. The canopy currently is 7.62%, and that's the entire area of Medicine Hat. 75% of those trees are on private property, and the average trees planted over the last 10 years by the municipality is about 1,000. This graph just represents a little bit of an indication or benchmarking on how fast you can actually increase your canopy, and we're in line with these other communities. You can notice our current canopy at 7.62% and our goal 13%, so 50 years trying to get 1% per decade. Stark difference between Toronto. With their climate, it's a lot different, and their canopy is a lot larger. A little bit more diving into the sector of the canopy itself. One note here, the South residential sector is one of the highest populated areas of their city.
but it has one of the lowest canopy percentages in the sectors. So that's where our concentration of planting would be. These are the sectors out of the MDP and just indicates the year that the planting would take place. There are benefits to planting trees. They provide various community benefits, overall well-being, and a strong environmental benefit. Also accelerating the planting accelerating the planting at 50% cost over the next 3 years. So is this a need to have or a nice to have? There is risks of not planting. Aging trees being not replaced or not replaced soon enough mitigate risk of impact on disease by diversifying species, tree inequity among the sectors, as I said, like Southridge, erosion, increased reliance on grey infrastructure, deferred and escalation of costs, and conflict with the community values of trees, which they say are good. This chart shows fund or planting and plan with and without funding. And the bottom line here is we would have 2,650 trees in the ground by the end of 2028 or 2,400 at the end of 2027. With the difference, without funding, we'd have about 500 trees. We may have some trees planted in 25 and 26, but as it was mentioned before, we'd be bringing forward a budget submission for a tree planting program in 2027. So there's a long-term investment and an effect on canopy coverage, but the key piece here is predicting future canopy growth is challenging because it's slow and non-linear. So growth and variables such as private property planting, people removing trees, drought and disease all can affect canopy, and it's hard to predict, but we can strive. As I mentioned, the partnership with the public and Catholic school boards, we have support letters of intent from both superintendents. Students would learn basic tree biology, benefits the urban forest, aligning with Alberta curriculum. Students would receive a number 5 container tree, which is about 3 feet high, plant in their yard and maintain. They'd care for, water, steward, and report on the tree back to the city so that we can report accurate data on where trees are being planted. This is in addition to the 2,400 trees being planted on public property. As the budget amendment was read already, I'm just going to skip past that. As Councillor Hyder had pointed out, it doesn't cause major issue in terms of the budget gap, debt limit, cash, and free cash flow requirements. However, just a minor impact as they consider the cumulative impact on budget amendments throughout the year. There is a bit of an operational impact. As we increase the canopy, we do have to maintain these trees for the future, and it would be at about budget submission in 2027, 28 budget, and this would start in 2028 at about $151,000 a year. So just a quick recap, approval of the budget amendment does not guarantee funding award. It approves and fulfills application requirements. There's a minor impact on budget gap. However, incremental increase in operating expenses is likely. The need, obviously, it mitigates risks, disease, aging trees, tree equity, reliance on the grey infrastructure. It is an MDP priority to plant trees in all viable public spaces and accelerates citywide planting plans supported by city plans and strategies at a 50% reduced cost. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Knodel.
Thank you, Mayor Clark. So the first thing that came up in my mind, I was concerned about all of the trees going to kids because you never know what will happen in the hands of a child. And not to say that children aren't responsible, they're lovely, but not all of them would daily water and do all the things to take care of a tree. So again, this is not a diss to the youth, I promise. This is just me saying when it could be anybody. On private property, we don't know what would happen to those trees. So you're telling me there'll be 2,400 in public space, about 250 on private property in the hands of the kids. Is that accurate?
Through the chair, it would be 4,300 trees over 3 years.
Oh, okay.
And that's how many kids are enrolled in grades 5s and 6s.
Okay.
The other key point on this one is I somewhat agree. This is not Alberta Forest Week where they get a sapling and no information is given to the parent about where to plant the tree. Not a knock at that program. That being said, though, we do want to educate and steward, and that's the critical part in this, is that the children become stewards of the canopy in the future. And one more point to it, yes, we cannot control where the tree goes, but the hope is that if at least the tree's planted, that it does have a hope of surviving. So.
Can I have a follow-up? Thank you so much. I appreciate that, Scott. And yeah, I think knowing that, so what would you say is going to be the length of time that the city would contribute to that education portion? Because there's a lot to learn, and it's, even as an adult, when you first get a yard, you buy your first property, there's a lot to know about how to properly take care of a plant. So I'm just wondering that. And then I was going to read my list of benefits of trees, but I think that I'm sure Councillor Van Dyke will list some because you're good for that. But yes, I'll leave it with that question.
Councillor Van Dyke, will you be regaling us with the benefits of trees?
Thank you, through the chair. I will be brief, I promise, because it's late. But I do have a few things to say. First of all, 2 proverbs. When I saw this come forward in the agenda, the first is the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is now. I'm sure everyone's familiar with that one. The other one is a society grows great when old men plant trees in whose shade they shall never sit. So I sometimes joke that I'm the tree counselor because I get so many inquiries about trees. I did campaign on tree planting. There are amazing health and energy benefits to trees and communities. It is an equity issue. It helps reduce heat in the summer and energy costs. So there's a lot of practical benefits to residents from having increased trees. And I hear a lot from people in the community that are concerned about trees that have been removed. We, of course, have had to remove over 400 trees just in the last I think 6 months as a result of drought and other environmental issues. We lost a huge number of trees during the windstorm in 2022, I believe it was, or 23, the years run together. And a lot of people have seen the removal of trees but are worried that they're not being replaced. It is a tremendous cost to replace quality trees. So I was happy to see this granting opportunity. I understand that this doesn't guarantee we're getting it. But I'm very happy to support it. I do have a question about tree species. Who determines the appropriate tree species? Because it did say appropriate, and that will differ from area to area.
Yeah, and thank you, through the chair. Tree species is a tricky one. The native, what we would call the native trees in Medicine Hat, there's very few trees that grow in a desert. So the cottonwood poplar is one that would grow, but we have had success with some of the other trees, and so we're going to try to diversify the trees. Elms do well, ash trees do well. However, those are also susceptible to disease, like the emerald ash borer and elm scale and Dutch elm disease. So we'll be very mindful about the types of trees that are placed and making sure that there's a diversity. But we do have a preferred list, and we have that kind of planned out already as well.
Do you have a follow-up? Not anything about fruit?
Okay, sorry. One brief follow-up. Will any of the trees be fruiting trees? And will perhaps there be a change in the Parks and Rec bylaw that will allow for residents to pick the fruit off of those fruiting trees?
Yeah, thank you, through the chair. Those are all points of consideration right now that we have on the go.
That is wonderful news. Thank you. Councillor Hyder, and not to interrupt anyone or try and limit people's comments, I will just note that we're at 9:30 now. So Councillor Hyder, feel free to speak your mind on this.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor Clark, and through the chair. I'm in full support of this. Scott and James, you know that. So much, and I know you had to really hustle through this presentation because I was fortunate enough to see the full presentation, so I appreciate all the work that went into this and everyone's favorite little budget window there. I have to pull up, and everyone read this, but trees, I mean, you show those photos of before and after, and I just, increased property values, energy savings, storm water management, and carbon. But this one I love the most, physical and mental health benefits. There is nothing better than having a tree you plant and it grow and you nurture it. And as far as connecting with the schools, I think that's a fantastic idea. Like Councillor Knodel said, you know, they're youth, but I think this is a great way to involve our youth and our community into a project that I hope comes to fruition. So thank you guys, and you have my full support.
Councillor Sharps.
Thank you. So first I owe Councillor Knodel an apology. When you were bringing up the youth part, I laughed, and I wasn't laughing at you, but I was going back to the days where we talked about chickens, and I thought, you didn't seem that concerned about the chickens, but you're concerned about, like, you were really pushing for the chickens, right? Right, but you seem more concerned about the trees going into their little hands than the chickens. So that's what I was laughing about. So I wasn't laughing at you, I was just laughing. You made me laugh. So I only have one question, Scott, and that is the budget. So is this for the 2024 Green Municipal Fund or for the upcoming 2025?
Thank you, through the chair. So this application was made in 2024, and the award from FCM was supposed to be around December or January, but so I think they're considering it the 24 award moving forwards.
Okay, so let's say we don't get chosen. Does that money, budget amount, come back to reserves or goes back to the original? I just want to know where the money's coming back to. I love this program. I think it's awesome. So, but I'm just questioning the budget amendment. So if we don't get it, where does the 1.75 million go back to? Or is it even actually moved until, because I think you have to have it for the funding agreement.
Yes. Okay, so I think the question is, are we budgeting 1 point whatever million for trees, period? Or are we budgeting subject to approving the grant?
Yeah, thank you, through the chair. It's subject to approval of the grant, from my understanding.
So it has to be a budget amendment then, right? So then my only question is, let's say we don't get it, what happens to that? So normally it goes back into reserves. Are we saying this won't go to reserves? It'll just stay in the normal pot of money?
Managing Director Hutter, do you have an answer to that?
Yes, thank you, and through the chair to Councillor Sharps, nothing would happen.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And sorry, if I can add a little more context here that I got from Director Barta. The 0.2% tax rate increase would translate to approximately 60 cents per month for the average residential taxpayer. I thought that might be interesting for council to hear.
2% is 60 cents a
Sorry,
month?
0.24%.
I was like, I'm okay with 5.6 now.
Yeah, so less than $7 a year for the average residential taxpayer.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor McGrogan.
Yeah, thank you. And I guess that's kind of my question is around budget as well. I see this was signed off on October the 3rd, and I was wondering if there was any thought about including it in the budget of 25-26 that we already debated. So the decision was more or less made. We were going to apply for this grant, so we knew we were going to be spending the money, or hopefully spending it. What is the thought process around, I guess, an amendment at this stage versus including it in the budget that we painfully went through?
Yeah, thank you, through the chair. There was some thought about bringing this forward into the budget. We were not sure about the application success or not. We did need to wait till the peer review came back to whether it was a good application or not. And we have received word that it is good, so we did not include it in the 25-26 budget.
So thank you. And again, it might be in here somewhere and I might have missed it, but if it was included in this budget, we had a 5.6% tax increase. It would have been another $3.5 million. And this isn't probably a question for you, but it might be for finance. What would that 5.6 have looked like if it was included in the budget? So is it, would it then be 7% increase, or what would it look like? Could someone give me just a scratch pad kind of idea of what that would look like?
So I think just the 1.7 is coming from us. So that, okay, Managing Director Hutter?
Yes, sorry, and through the chair to Councillor McGrogan, to be clear, it's 1.75 million, and the resulting addition to the 5.6% would be 0.24, so you'd be at 5.84% would be the result.
Okay, one quick question to finish. So if we don't get the grant, and these trees are so important, why aren't we still spending the 1.7 million on tree canopy?
Yeah, thank you through the chair. They are important. We do have a planting plan coming forward in 27, 28. This just helps accelerate that plan.
Councillor Robbins.
Thank you, and through the chair, thank you for including, there's a table that shows if we don't have the grant funding, what the planting and the cost is going to be, and how many trees we'll have by the end of 2028. It's a little green chart on, I forget what page. And with grant funding, what we'll be able to plant and what the cost is. And so what I find interesting is that when you're talking about the 2027, 2028 tree planting budget is $500,000, but the number of trees 500, as opposed to the cost to the city over the next 4 years, and 5 times the number of trees, but not 5 times the amount of dollars. So I do like to see that. I'm going to support this for all sorts of reasons, but the main one that I talked about in the summertime when people were talking about their utilities, and I said my utilities don't go up substantially in the summertime because I live on a piece of property that doesn't have air conditioning because it's surrounded by trees. So not everyone gets that opportunity to enjoy the shade of a tree to cool their house down, but maybe some of these kids' grandchildren will enjoy that. As you said, the shade of a tree they didn't plant means something, and certainly whoever planted the trees around my house has done me a big favor. So I'm happy to pay it forward.
Councillor Dumanowski.
Through the chair, briefly, thank you for the report. Like others, it's an easy decision, I think, relatively for a council to make in support of a tree canopy, a growing one. My question was partly along the lines of the invasive species that we often hear about, and so any plans around or less desirable species, but I'm talking invasive ones, that are we looking to at any point replace, remove some of those invasive species or areas and repopulate with under this program? That's first question. And then also, and maybe you touched on some of the decision making around the types of trees, but I love, next to Councillor Van Dyke, I love trees and I love lush, green, real grass. That is my thing, and I'll never change. But that takes water, and I'm willing to pay for it. But we've come under drought conditions or drought-like conditions. A lot of the concern was put on the residents to say, if you can water trees on your boulevards, please do so. When people are paying high utilities, or the perception is high utilities, that they're reluctant to add additional dollars. So in order to incentivize both on the public side and the private side, how are we kind of making decisions around species who can handle less or water tolerant or drought resistant? And again, going back to invasive species, are we looking to replace any of those with some more appropriate trees under this mandate?
Yeah, thank you through the chair. So invasive species for trees, known ones right now, we don't have anything that I'm aware of that's regulated. There are what we'll call more undesirable trees that may not be of native species, but do actually thrive in the environment. So we would be mindful about making sure that if they are regulated, we would take care of them as required by any I guess regulations from Alberta. Your second question, in terms of watering, yes, they do require water. Tree survivability, the mortality rate on trees currently are anywhere between 20 and 30%, so which means they only 70 or 80% of them survive. with a watering plan that we're introducing, this should see that mortality decrease, where we've got a structured 5-year watering plan that should see it reduced to 10%. So trees in deserts typically don't do well, and we've seen that, but we need to ensure that they get a lot of water, and there's a scientific researched water program that we'll be introducing to ensure that survivability.
All right, seeing no further speakers, we will vote on the motion. That's unanimous. Thank you very much for your presentation and answering all of our questions. Moving on to 11.2, 2025 Community Vibrancy Grant Distribution. Before I ask for a motion, I did want to note, and I apologize if I missed it somewhere, generally speaking, we get a briefing note in close that has all of the applicants, and then one in open with just the successful applicants, so that we're making a decision based on the total information, and I don't see that in our closed package. So given that this isn't fully delegated to ALR or to the Community Vibrancy Grant, or Community Vibrancy Board, I do think that council should have the full picture when they're making their decision. We're considering a recommendation from the Community Vibrancy Board, but if I've missed that information in our closed package, can you please identify that? Oh, Councillor Robbins.
Yeah, sorry, Managing Director Hutter might be able to answer this, but in our discussion at the Public Services Committee meeting, we talked about other grants that people didn't meet the qualifying, like the basic qualifications of the grant. And so you'll see from this that there's $10,000 that was left over that they've recommended that goes to the city's micro grants. So that may well be why you're not seeing, it's not like they were picking between one or the other. The others didn't qualify for various reasons. They may not have fit the criteria of the grant. They may not have the right documentation. So that might be why it's different than in previous years, but it's something that at Public Services we have seen in the past for sure and have brought to council and closed. In this case, just based on the explanation we had around the table, it was going to be a little bit different, but if I'm wrong about that, Managing Director Hutter will tell me I'm wrong. Feel free.
Managing Director Hutter.
Thank you, and through the chair, Councillor Robbins is 99% correct on that one. There were a number of applications that were deemed ineligible due to timing issues, but I can think of one example of an application that was denied that was eligible. So it does appear that we are missing some information here, and I'd be happy to return next meeting with that information if council so desires.
So, two options. One is someone can make a motion to go into close. We can go into L1, receive the information there and come back, or we can postpone this item until next meeting.
That's a good question.
Councillor Sharp?
Sorry, so if we made a motion to go into close, we would literally go in there, 5 minutes of his time, come back and approve this and move on?
However long it takes, but it sounds like it could be brief.
Could it be brief? I would hate to postpone an item like this because I think it's probably very clear cut. I'm hoping it's clear cut, but I would be happy to make that motion to flip into closed.
Okay, do we have a seconder?
Oh.
Robbins?
Yeah, I was just going to say that I think we have another option. There's $10,000 left over from this that is not earmarked for anything else. We could have a motion to move that to a microgrant or hold that $10,000 until we get the information enclosed. If we decide to award that $10,000 to the one other recipient, potential recipient, we could do that next council meeting. All of these have planning to do, so the sooner that we make a decision if they are going to get the award or not, the better. But because we have that extra money that was not awarded, we would have some time on that one applicant with that $10,000 to have a discussion later. So that's a third option.
Okay, we do have a motion to go into closed on the floor. Do we have a seconder?
No. I don't
Any
care if it goes
seconder?
postponed, it doesn't matter to me, like, this will literally
We
be
are
seconds.
missing information, though.
Yeah, so I wouldn't vote for this until I have that information, so,
No seconder.
that's fine.
Okay,
Makes no difference to me.
all right. So I will need a motion for the distribution.
I'm going to make the motion if that's okay, Councillor Hyder, because I'm going to only make it on the first part. So, and I don't want to force you to do anything, but anyway, I would move that council approves the distribution of the 2025 Community Vibrancy Grants in the Community Projects and Activities stream as per the Community Vibrancy Board recommendations attachment 1, full stop, and the other $10,000 could be referred back to a next closed meeting of council to determine what should happen to it.
I'll second.
It would have to come back to open. So right now, the motion that we have on the table is council approves the distribution, period. Do we have a seconder for that?
Yeah, I'll second.
Okay. Councillor Sharps?
Thank you, Mayor Clark. I just see this as two different things. The $10,000 left over and the missing information are two different things. So I'm not so much worried about the 10,000. I would just rather, I think it's not the right thing to do to ever make a decision without all the information. So for that reason, I will not support this.
Councillor McGrogan?
Yeah, I'm going to have to agree with that. I think it's fine, like, I'd rather, I think in hindsight, I don't want to see this defeated, because then I think it has to wait, how many months? Is it 6 months? 6 months it has to sit and wait, so I don't think we can do that. Oh, it doesn't? Okay, so I'd like to see the attachment as well.
But no one wants to make that second for going into closed, for just to get that information. Is that, okay? Councillor
No,
Hyde,
I will second it.
so motion to go in closed by Councillor Sharps, seconder, Councillor McGrogan. Just for the purpose of getting the absent information, we will vote on the motion to go into closed. That passes. We will meet in L1 and open council will resume when we come back. And for your patience, can I get a motion? Oh, we did. So we need to identify a FOIP provision for why we went into closed. And I am thinking that it falls under,
Public officials?
I was thinking third party
Third party.
confidential.
Yep, vice from officials or
Okay,
third party.
give me one.
What is third party?
And that is section 18, 1, and possibly also 24? No, 21. I want to say it's 24, but
24,
yeah. And section 24, can I have we forgot to do a motion to go back into open. Can I get a motion to go
I'll
back
do a
into
motion
open?
to go back
I'll
into open.
second.
Okay, thank you. We'll vote. All right, and that is unanimous. So we will, unless, did we put the motion on the table? The motion is on the table. Councillor Van Dyke.
Thank you through the chair. Very quickly, I just want to say that I was really pleased to see the variety of applications for this year. And I was really happy also to know that we could fund virtually all of the applications that came forward. I think people are really going to enjoy all of these different community events and festivals as they happen. Thank you.
All right, so given the time, okay, we have Councillor Robbins next. So I apologize, I'm getting ahead of myself.
That's no problem. I had only read the first part of the motion, not the second part of the motion. So I'd like to amend my motion to include the second part of the motion. Transfer 10,000 to community vibrance grant funding into community micro grant neighborhood connection stream.
Well, yeah,
Someone else
has
could
to
apply
amend.
to do it.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll make that amendment. So transfer of $10,000 in community vibrancy grant funding to the community micro grant neighborhood connections stream.
Okay, seconder.
I'll second.
All right, we'll vote on the amendment. That's unanimous. Seeing no further speakers, we'll vote on the main motion. That's unanimous, and congratulations to all of the grant recipients. We're now on to 11.3, property tax bylaw. Given the time and the importance of this issue, we are going to, it says that we'll have a presentation tonight, but what we're going to do is give that opportunity to the finance department at our next meeting when we are actually debating second and third reading. And I want to extend apologies to the members of the finance department that are here and have been waiting and listening until 10 p.m. So we are just considering first reading. So if I could get a motion.
I move that City Council gives first reading to bylaw 4848, the 2025 property tax bylaw.
I'll second
that.
Okay, so we'll go with Councillor Hyder. Okay, and we'll vote on first reading. That's unanimous. Next up, we have 11.5, bylaw 4850, tax and assessment electronic communications options. Can I get a motion for first reading?
Your worship, I move that council gives first reading to bylaw 4849, the 2025 supplementary property tax bylaw.
I will second that motion.
Okay, we'll vote on first reading. Councillor Sharps has stepped out, so we can just look at the, okay. That's unanimous. I will note that the presentation that was going to be given is in the package for anyone who would like to review it. Next up is bylaw 4831 to amend the procedure bylaw and bylaw related to public hearings. And this is for first reading.
Your worship, we missed bylaw 4850.
We sure did. Sorry. Tax and assessment electronic communications options. I thought we
I'll
did
move that council gives first reading to bylaw 4850 to amend the electronic communications for tax and assessment notices.
I'm pretty sure we just did that one. Oh, all right. Oh, okay, I will, what?
I'll second.
Okay, sure.
It's late. If we double first reading it. Yeah. Maybe I read the wrong one the first time. So that was my bad. I actually accidentally maybe read them out of order, so I apologize. But we are voting now on bylaw 4850, first reading. That's unanimous. Now for first reading, bylaw 4831 to amend the procedure bylaw related to public hearings, and this is as a result of some changes to the MGA.
So I'll move that council gives first reading to bylaw 4831.
Second.
Okay, we'll vote on first reading. And that's unanimous. And we have a notice of motion that is on the floor for next meeting with respect to legal fee reimbursement. And that is the last item of business that I see. Are there any objections to adjourning the meeting? All right.
Your worship, if I could, on the notice of motion, I do note that the title is legal fee reimbursement and you're the sponsor. So my question, if I could, would be before we, even though it is a matter of moving it to next meeting, from the standpoint of procedural appropriateness, I'll call it, or order, I'm asking if there's any pecuniary interest in that matter on your behalf.
There is pecuniary, I will look into that. I expected that I was permitted to make the motion and put my background forward. However, my feeling is that I would not participate in the debate and decision about that motion.
If I may, I appreciate that, and no ill will intended. If anything, I'm actually wanting to make sure that, and you're a lawyer by profession, but that we're on side, that you're on side and we're on side of that motion from the standpoint of pecuniary interest, obviously under the MGA. It does indicate when there is a vote that if a councillor or mayor has a pecuniary interest matter, they would disclose the general nature of the pecuniary interest before a discussion. They would abstain from voting on related questions. They abstain from discussing the matter, and they would leave the room until the discussion and voting are concluded. However, I believe there's a sufficient amount of gray matter here when it comes to the MGA, and where the MGA explicitly addresses whether a councillor or mayor should initiate a notice of motion on a matter in which they have pecuniary interest. Given the intent of this legislation to prevent conflict of interest and maintain public trust, I believe it would be prudent for us to avoid initiating a motion until an external or internal legal review on that matter has been presented before this council.
Okay, there was no motion on the table, so are there any objections to adjourning? Okay, this council meeting is adjourned at 9:56 p.m.